Okie dokie. So this is the only tank point of view that I could find between yesterday and today. Uh, it is Alliance, so there are going to be some small differences in what we actually do compared to this, but generally speaking, everything
Oh
is
yeah,
pretty
I don't
equivalent.
have shit.
Let
Keep
me
running
turn
into
him
it.
down a bunch.
Loading. I am loading.
He's got that Southern Texas accent.
Ah, yes, Southern Texas.
Ah, yes. Lovely.
So
Just Mexico.
I'm gonna skip around quite a bit here because we already talked about a lot of this in the overall discussion. One of the big things that you'll see in this video that we didn't get to see in the other one, though, is the thorns on these Anubis Seth Guardians over here hit like trucks, which is one of the reasons that you save thorns for last. Um, we the onslaught run was lucky enough that I don't think that they might have gotten one, but it was relatively meh. So I'm gonna skip forward here just so you can see the melee almost killed themselves. It's a sad time. Um, don't do this. So here's Thorns. You can watch the raid frames over here. Every hit that this person makes is like a good 1,000, 2,000 damage or some shit. It hurts a lot. People start killing themselves on it. Yeah, so tanks, be careful with this. Obviously, you guys are getting healed pretty consistently, so it shouldn't be an issue. But the melee, I will have to yell at because they don't pay attention to their health often. So, don't kill yourselves on thorns. Other than that, these are just tank and spank. There's no real tank-specific mechanics you guys have to worry about on these. Just spread them out. You know, obviously these people are cleaving. There's literally no reason to cleave other than just bumping up your damage numbers.
They heal to full as soon as one of them dies.
Correct. As soon as one dies, the next one heals to full. So right here, you'll see, I'll pause this again. They actually had a bunch of their melee stop DPS because the raid is at half health. Don't kill yourselves on thorns.
We're running into a similar quality issue as yesterday or whatever day it was. Can you try sharing screen instead of sharing window? Or
try the YouTube stream. It might be slightly delayed.
Where's the YouTube stream?
If you go to the website and then go to records, there's a raid videos section. There should be a
Yeah, YouTube looks about 20 seconds delayed.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
That's a big
from
delay.
Your Discord audio.
All right, let me do a couple things here. I can try sharing a screen instead of window. That just means that I have to do a couple things to make this actually do the thing.
Bacon, are you farming runes?
Yep.
Why
also, for what it's worth, the quality on this is not that great.
Out here. Boo. There's a warlock out here killing too. I'll just have to be faster than them.
Alright, let me give this a shot. See if this is any better. Actually, let me change one more thing.
You doing that right now, Grass?
Yeah.
Alright. I'll log on to Warrior. I'll have to hang back.
That looks a lot
though.
better.
Do you actually need stuff?
It's just True Strike.
That's cool.
And I don't have the Briarwood on my mage, but if you're after it, then, you know, no point in bringing him.
Yeah, I still need Briarwood and 2 healing Librams on brass.
Now, one of the things that you all should be aware of here, we're going to have Detect Magic on these. You'll notice that there is a buff that shows up. Obviously, depending on how your UI is set up, this will be in a different place. But having the tanks call out what each of their targets has is the easiest way to deal with these. Otherwise, I have to tab between all 4 of them, figure out what all 4 of them are, and then call a kill target. Just having them all announced right off the bat makes that a lot easier. There will also likely be weak auras or DBM updates that facilitate that over the course of time, so it's not something we'll have to worry about probably for more than a week. But until we get a unified solution for that, it's nice to be
You
able
could
to
hear him
just...
say melee, 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 get off.
Yep. Alright, so they actually...
So I don't know what you all did, but this is a much better experience
Yeah,
for
it's very,
watching
very
your
clear
screen
now.
shared video.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I changed like 3 things, including closing WoW. Scarum is... You're only going to see the center tank point of view here. In reality, there should be 3 to 6 tanks for Scarum. The reason that you want that many redundancies is because Scarum and a clone can pop up on the same platform. It's not guaranteed that you get one in the middle and one on each side here. That being said, the main tank, the person that's picking up Scarum right off the bat, which will probably be Brass, at least for the foreseeable future, will take him and tank him right in the center here. And then the other tanks are just going to wait off on the edges here. We'll have a tank over here and a tank over there. Those will be what I'll call main off tanks, people that also have a decent amount of responsibility. When the splits happen, it's their job to pick up the ads that spawn on these platforms, and the main tank picks up whichever one spawns in the middle. The important thing to note is that there will also be a DPS warrior over here, a DPS warrior over there, and a DPS warrior here. Those 3 DPS warriors are there just in case more than one Scarum appears, right? When the split...
Also there to pummel. You want
Yes.
interrupters split with the tanks.
Yep, when the split's
We're gonna
about to
have
happen, the
rogues.
melee's going to split off anyway. So rogues and, there will be pre-assigned positions for the DPS. But as far as tanks are concerned, there's no reason for a tank to even be here unless they're actively tanking Scarum. So you guys just wait off here. What ends up happening if Scarum is not tanked, and this includes the ads, if the splits aren't tanked immediately upon the split happening, they do an Earth Shock, and that Earth Shock hits for a ton. And it doesn't hit you for a ton because you've got lots of health. It hits somebody random for a ton, and those people probably cannot afford to take that damage. So we like tanks being there immediately, ready to pick those up. So watch the fight real quick. You're going to see this from the central tank's perspective, so it'll be a little bit difficult to see the edges here, but he does shift his camera a couple times to get a different perspective, so you'll be able to see that.
Why do people play zoomed in so much?
I don't freaking know. So, first thing I want you all to notice, he's dual wielding here. Scarum doesn't hit particularly hard. The big thing about Scarum is the arcane explosions, and that's not your job. But if you want to have a shield on to do things like shield bash, it doesn't hurt. Everybody's going to be careful with their threat on our first few clears anyway. So you can dual wield this at the start, you can swap to a shield whenever, it's not a big deal.
I think swapping during the splits is probably a good idea.
Because there will be less people on that for kick redundancies. Okay, so first split. Notice how he was tanking it here, and now it's back there. These do not spawn in perfectly fixed locations. There's a little bit of variance as for their spawn location. So you will have to adjust. And this distance here is like barely enough. In fact, this person right here is probably saving somebody from an Earth Shock. So he picks it up.
It's one of the clones. It only has like 32,000 health.
Yes. So please, for the love
Or
of
50,
everything, make
whatever.
sure you have your target health turned on, because you're going to need to call. I'm going to also try to call, but obviously having one tank call each ad is the best idea. Call whether yours is the clone or the real one. The clones are the ones that need to die. The real one could literally stand there and not take any damage for the entirety of the split happening, and I wouldn't care. The clones need to die quick and fast. And quick and fast and expediently. The other thing that should happen here, and I think he has this on his raid frames up here. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. So, if you do not have target marker macros set up, we will have to work on making some of those, especially for people tanking Scarum things, and there's other bosses later on that you're going to need this for. Having a quick button to hit to mark your target with a symbol, even while you're tanking and doing your regular rotations, will help a ton. Obviously, I will be doing this as well, but if you target this and see that it's got 40,000 health or whatever, and quickly put a skull on it, or quickly put an X on it, or quickly put any mark on it, really, any mark. As long as the main one isn't marked, we're good, That way people know to kill marked targets. That's really just a visual aid for the rest of the raid. Now, this dies, so he comes back over here to, oh, by the way, MC'd person. Don't kill the MC'd person, but run away from the MC'd person. They should be CC'd.
They will kill you.
Yeah. So he goes back onto the main one. You'll notice that this one's already at 60%. This boss dies really freaking fast in Classic.
460,000 health is not a ton.
Yeah, so one of the things everybody needs to be aware of, but tanks too, because obviously you guys are staring at the boss's health bar most of the time. I will be healing, unfortunately. Bacon will also be staring at the health bar, so he can help out with this as well.
I'll be doing a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah, if this boss gets to 55, 52, anything below 55% before the ads are dead, we've got a big problem, and everybody
Then we
needs
get
to stop
2
DPS
more
on the boss.
ads.
So don't be afraid to call for stopping DPS on the boss if you see split ads still up. Obviously these ones are dead, so they're good to keep going. There's really no reason to try to reposition this, so he just goes back to his spot for the split. There's the split, starts running off. Notice the cast time here on Arcane Explosion. If you watch the cast bars up here real quick. So he moves. This is something everybody needs to be ready for. The ad spawns, and 2 seconds later immediately starts casting Arcane Explosion. So I'm going to be yelling at the Warlocks to be quick with their curses, but people need to be quick with their kicks and pummels and shield bashes and all that too.
It looked like a 2-second cast.
They've got tongues on it.
Already? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, their Warlocks are insta-tonguesing.
Okay, that's good.
Attack whatever's in front of you.
But yeah, other than that, from a tank's perspective, this is easy. Right? Each of you has an assigned spot. There's not a lot of mechanics that you have to worry about. You just, tank whatever pops up in front of you, and you're good to go.
Loot the neutral thing from it.
I'm going to move forward because ad packs are going to be probably the most difficult thing from a tank point of view. One of the things that you notice here, he gets the first mount, so he ends up pulling these pretty early. You really don't want to do this. These Guardians actually hit. Like, they're not weak. And this is a Brainwasher. It mind controls, which you will notice in a second here. Yeah, tank gets mind controlled. That's less than ideal. It actually happens a lot. So one of the things that we want for these is we're going to have a lot of backup off tanks. You might get mind controlled 2 or 3 times in a row on the mind control packs. There's nothing you can do about it. As far as I'm aware, this is not dispellable, and you're just going to run around and smack people, and it is what it is. We can CC you, but that's it. Also, they will pop your last stand, so rip.
Shadowward Pain. Very nice.
These Guardians, again, this is wrong. This is incorrect. These should always be tanked with your back against a wall. we will be dragging this whole pack into the tunnel that they're about to go into. But these Guardians do a massive knockback, and it's not a good time. Right now they're okay because there's nothing else in this room, but you want to get into the habit of tanking most things in AQ with your back against a wall. The vast majority of AQ trash, and bosses for that matter, have some kind of knockback ability.
So we're looking for the patrol. We're gonna try to kill them at the same time.
So this is the tunnel where we will fight that pack in.
That's what we're looking for.
Do those have to be split, or is it okay to just?
Nope. They can be tanked on top of each other in AoE. They don't cleave or anything like that. There is a mob in here that does, but we'll get to that later.
Goddamn heal.
So this pack back here is just the same. 3 of the Guardians and a Brainwasher. I don't think that they actually kill this. I think that they go straight forward here and grab the Pat. The Pat is different. So there are going to be Warriors, I believe they're called. Yep, there they are. Warriors? Warriors, yes. So these are basically the same mob, but white. The difference is these will spawn a shit ton of ads when they die. So there are a couple of ways to deal with these. You either tank them on top of each other and split DPS as if this were like Tiger Boss, which is what they're going to do here. And once you kill all of them, everybody pops some kind of AoE. Boom sappers, mages are kiting, yada yada yada. We don't have that many sappers, so we'll probably be killing those one at a time. But yeah, because the ads that spawn, they're not like, oh, these have to be tanked with a shield or somebody dies. But think about it like
this one grass.
Think about it like the beginning ad packs in ZG, the Mistress packs, where you really don't want to be taking hits from all of them at the same time, especially if you're a squishy clothy. So a quick demo shout to group them up, and some AoE, and those are good to go.
Alright, mark these up, tank.
Now here's where things get interesting. This is a 6-pack of Guardians, and you'll remember I said that these do not hit lightly. Watch the tank's health here. First thing you'll notice is because this is Alliance, the tank has 11k health. You guys don't. So when you're watching the drops, watch the number that drops, not the percentage that drops. Also, you'll notice that priests are pre-shielding the tanks. We will be doing this. It is very important to stack Rage at the end of one pull so that you have it for the next, because due to the nature of the pulls here, you will be taking a decent amount of damage right off the bat that the healers are probably not going to be prepared for. They're not used to the amount of damage that ads and bosses in this instance do. And these ones in particular, especially if there are 2 or 3 on a single target, will wreck you. I want you to, here, focus real quick. I'm going to back this up. Focus real quick on his portrait up here. He's got incoming heals turned on. And just look at the frequency and size of the heals that he has coming in as he's tanking these. These healers are not joking around, right? I'm going to remind our healers to do this, but this guy's getting healed for 1,000 plus basically every global. That is necessary. The other thing is, I understand that moving your camera is, you know, occasionally a bit of a nuisance, but seeing things is good. Despite the fact that your back is to a wall, turning your camera so that you can actually see what's going on will help, because if you notice, there are things evading. There's only so much you can do about this, because while you're up here, it will evade. Also, like I said, backs to walls. Fall damage is a big thing with these packs. But you don't want to get stuck up there and have things evade for any period of time. One last thing. You'll notice that there is a bleed that is stacking here. That's where a lot of the damage comes from. It's part of the reason that we don't want you tanking too many of these together. We will likely use 3 additional off tanks for this, so that each person only has 1. But yeah, be careful of this bleed. If you see this get high, I'm not sure if loofahs clear all 3 or more stacks of these, but like maybe bring your loofah. I don't know. But if it gets too high, like, you know, call it out so healers know, or call it out so another tank can rip it off of you or whatever.
You're picking that stuff up, right? Yep. All right, I'm pulling this back to
Like, one of the things I should point out, they kill those very quickly. We will not kill them that quickly. So, your bleed stacks will get higher than that, which is why that's important.
Peek around the corner and get your markers up.
This is another one of the big packs.
Free shield the rogues.
So we're just going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to skip through this.
Punted, watch it.
These packs off on the left here can be skipped, but there is a warrior pat. So this is something that... this is another one of those AoE packs.
Or dynamite. Zapper.
And then once all that's dead, we're good. One more 6-pack, and then they move into...
Melee. You get top on. And then you got... assignments.
This is...
Tank.
Okay. So Sartura's room. Sartura's pat is pretty oval in shape, and it goes along this back wall here. We will be calling for when the pull should happen. Hopefully at this point several of the tanks have mounts, because you want to be able to get her deep into the room, but also be very careful that you do not go too far. Healers will probably not have mounts at this point. Maybe a couple will. Who knows? We might get lucky. But you do not want to get too far ahead of your healers here. You also don't want to pull her too far back here. These do a massive knockback, and obviously you don't want to go flying into a place that might have trash, and whirlwinds and a bunch of other things. So I'm going to let this play, and I'll talk about a couple things. So, watch for the pat. They're not pulling yet. They know better. Sartura's way too close. As soon as she turns around, starts going this way, that's when he's going to start riding in.
Go. Fan out.
Again, pre-shielded.
Fan out. Odds let you run.
Now, notice how he was stutter stepping on the mount. He is going ahead, but he doesn't want to go too far ahead. He does a cheeky little rage generation with this here beetle. If you can manage it, I guess, but don't get distracted by the beetles. Okay. So Sartura herself, the big bad, is going to be tanked off to the side. As far as we can get Sartura away from the ads while the ads are up, the better. Obviously, again, don't outrange the healers. This is a massive room. You can do it very easily. These small ads will have 3 tanks, 1 for each of those. One of the things that you'll quickly discover here is that Sartura is, compared to some of the other bosses in here, a wet noodle. She doesn't hit that hard. However, she whirlwinds. The whirlwind hits like a truck, especially if you're not a tank. So I'm going to talk about what tanks can do about this whirlwind in a second here. But what I want you to notice is they've got an ad over here, they've got an ad over there, and there's an ad off screen all the way over here. That's not necessary. The ads don't need to be tanked that far apart. They should have distance between them because the ads share Sartura's threat drop mechanic. So the ads will randomly target somebody and start whirlwinding toward them. The more spread out that they are, obviously, the more time that people have to react to that whirlwind mechanic happening, right? So if this healer over here gets targeted by this ad over here, it's going to be a day and a half before that ad gets over there, and that helps, right? I'm back. Okay. So we'll focus one at a time. The other thing to keep in mind here, they didn't think that this was going to be a thing, but it is, and it makes the fight way easier. The ads and Sartura are all tauntable, even while whirlwinding. That's going to be very important in a second here, and I'll show you why. They're all also stunnable. We will have stun rotations and yada yada. The rogues will be communicating with us and with the raid about things like kidney shot and cheap shot and all that other good stuff, and yada yada. Intercept stun I think also works, but so the ads die relatively quickly. These people are doing more damage than we're going to do, but they don't have a lot of health. So that dies. They move on to the next one. Notice everybody getting the heck out of dodge when the whirlwind is happening. That is very important, and it's the tank's job, because Sartora is tauntable while whirlwinding. We're going to have several people over here ready to taunt and rotate taunts, sort of like you do on Rag, to keep her in one place. That's not so important while there are ads up. While there are ads up, the fight is chaos anyway. People need to be reacting and moving and yada yada yada. If you can keep her in one spot, that's great. But people should be focusing on the ads anyway. So, once the ads die, they're splitting DPS right now. That's fine too. One of the things, this fight is a very dynamic fight. There's a lot that can happen here that changes the strategy. It's not the kind of fight that we're going to go in every week and it's going to look exactly the same. In fact, we're going to go in every week and it's going to look probably very different every week, just because of all of the RNG with whirlwinds and who the ads fixate and that kind of thing. But we'll see. Okay, so in a second here. Okay. While she is whirlwinding, they've got two tanks. There's a third tank that's going to come up. Oh, there's the third tank. It's underneath the bear. They've got a fourth tank that's going to come over here in a second. They're all just taunt rotating to keep her in one spot. This is not how Sartora normally looks. While she is whirlwinding, she will go to a random target. But if she's fixated on you because of taunt, mocking blow, challenging shout, all of those things, you can actually see the mocking blow icon currently active over here. She won't move. That's great because it means that the healers don't have to move. It means the mages don't have to move. The warlocks don't have to move. All of the good stuff. However, the melee will still need to be careful, right? We see two rogues that are getting low. This whirlwind does still do significant damage. So the melee will be moving in and out depending on where their health is, you know, getting healed back up, going back in, dealing damage, yada yada yada. But if you guys as tanks can keep her in one spot like this, that makes the fight so much easier. So much easier. Now there's one thing I want to point out here. 4 tanks is probably the maximum for doing that. If we have 5 or 6 in there, we're going to run into healing issues because it's a lot of people to keep alive. Both because the whirlwind will be doing damage to all of you, and because taunts are rotating, healers are never going to be quite sure who has aggro unless we are extraordinarily vocal, which, you know, we're getting there with certain fights, but we need to be very careful about that.
The targeted target macro and flash healing at that point will actually get us a lot of mileage.
Yes. The one thing that you want to be careful of as a healer here, though, and I'll remind the healers of this, you can't just spam your target macro, right? Because everybody around her is taking damage, not just the tank. She also enrages, so at some point here, I don't think that they put shields on. Let's find out. No. Alright, so they go hard. I would put a shield on, personally. But that's Sartora. Sartora is the fight that I am most worried about. It is chaos. There is only so much that you as tanks can do to control that chaos. A lot of that is dependent on all of the people in the stun rotation, you know, taking care of their stuns and doing that properly. But also, a lot of the people... If people that get fixated don't realize that they're fixated and run in a direction that does not drag the unit through the raid, that's also a problem. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong here. But there are a few things that you as tanks can do to help with that.
Do you know if thorium grenade stun works on them?
As far as I'm aware, all stuns do. There are diminishing returns on certain stuns that overlap with others. I don't remember off the top of my head which those are.
Thorium grenade will be almost worthless because the stun breaks on damage.
Yeah, there's that.
That's true.
So that will be basically pointless. It'll be good for damage, but Zapper is better damage, so...
The other thing to keep in mind is none of these things are stunnable while they are whirlwinding. The stuns are to prevent all of that from happening. So, taunts while she's whirlwinding, stuns while she's not. Now, this is actually a very important thing to talk about for tanks. This hallway leading up to Fankris is AQ's version of the suppression room. All of these little mobs are non-elites. They really don't hit that hard, but you don't want to get overwhelmed with them either. If you think about them like the whelps in the suppression room, roughly the same volume of bugs to whelps is about what you can handle. It's about half the number. They do hit harder than whelps, but there are less of them. So I would put a shield on if you're the one that's going to be AoE tanking. If you are the one that's tanking these big blue mobs, you don't necessarily need one. They do hit, but not any harder than anything else you would expect. These do need to be tanked. If these are not picked up, they will kill Clothies pretty quickly. These other ones will also kill Clothies if they group up, but they give mages and warlocks enough time to kite them and that kind of thing. So we'll handle this a lot like these people do. One of the previous runs that we watched in the Friday meeting last week was a meeting where they just ran through and they were AoEing the entire time. I don't like that at all. That is very prone to people dying, because one person AoEing first means shit can go wrong real fast. These also respawn faster than Suppression Room. I think their timer is 30 seconds. So you can't linger, but you've also got a little bit of time. So you'll see there's actually a little bit of a break here in the path where you'll see that there's no bugs. I think that was intended so that you could get a group, kill the group, move on, get a group, kill the group, move on. You can handle more than one pack of these at a time. 2 packs is probably as much as you want to gather before we AoE down, but yeah. These do pat quite a bit, and you'll notice that the social aggro radius on them is much bigger than the social aggro radius on the drones. So you have to be careful, don't pull this while it's like, in the middle of that thing over there. But everybody's moving together here. Everybody should be pretty tight behind you, so you've got support. I wish they didn't kill this so fast so you could see how hard it hits, but the answer is, I think they melee for between 500 and 600 on average, so it's not huge.
We still want to wreck here, or do you think we're gonna...
These little ones you see are hitting him for between 50 and 100.
You're gonna need it, or it'll be back up for Cthulhu probably. I don't know.
Back up then.
I don't know. Maybe
I saw a 350 and a 480 in there.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
been in here like 10 minutes.
But once we're through this this tunnel, after you kill Fankris, this tunnel no longer respawns, similar to Broodlord, which is actually a sad time. People used to farm this tunnel for drops, but that is apparently not a thing that we're going to be able to do in Classic.
For mounts.
Yeah, so one of the things that you'll notice here is they've got 2 tanks here. They've got one over here, and this is this is demo shout spam going on here. A little exclamation points. That's your best bet for gathering aggro on these. You will not out aggro AoE, but you'll out aggro healers, which is the important thing.
Safe spot it on the left. Stop at the top of the hill. Stop here.
Okay, so one of the things that these people are about to do, they're not going to safe spot this. We are going to safe spot this. I'm going to pause this here. There's a safe spot right over here, where that crease meets. It will probably take us a little bit of time to find the safe spot for all the people that haven't done this before. So we're actually going to stop like right here and do the suppression room thing where we kill respawns and drink in between it. Because we're going to slowly inch up to this like it's freaking Broodlord's room. They're just going to walk in, but I want you guys as tanks especially to note the aggro radius here. Right there. Fankris is aggroed. This is like, yeah, gotta be careful. So Fankris is a tank mechanic fight in many ways. The first thing is you'll notice that he's dragging him to the middle of the room. That's very important because the ads spawn from the sides, and you want time to kill the ads. You'll also notice that there's a debuff here. This is called Mortal Wound. It is a stacking healing reduction debuff. So we're going to have multiple tanks on this, 2 to be precise. We'll talk about that in a second here.
That debuff is also a cleave.
Yes, I actually think the debuff might be named Mortal Cleave. I know the ability is named Mortal Cleave. I think the debuff is named Mortal Wound. Who knows? But regardless, this is bad. The reason that they have 2 tanks in front right now is because they are fighting for aggro. This is okay for a second. Having 2 tanks attempting, actually they've got 3 tanks that are attempting to fight for it. This is okay because whoever ends up with it can stay in front, and then whoever doesn't have it moves to the back. You'll notice that this person thought the other person had it, swapped spots, and then went back. And yeah, this is a bit of a mess. I wouldn't do this if I were you guys. But the tank gets teleported. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they can. I think that the aggro swapped right before it happened. Let me take a closer look. Right here, Plasmic hits 100%. And then Sea Strike gets teleported. So, uncertain if the tank can get teleported or not. This is another one of those reasons that you really want to have multiple tanks fighting for aggro on this. This teleport can happen to just about anybody. And you'll notice that there are 4 hatchlings that have spawned on top of the person that has gotten teleported. You are stuck here for 7 seconds. While this is happening, the healers will be spamming heals on this person and eventually get aggro because of it. But whoever is stuck here is just, that's whatever. These ads, which he'll turn to in a second here. These ones over here that just walked off screen. Let's see if I can move back to those for a second. These little ones, they don't necessarily need to be tanked. They can be held by basically any DPS warrior that has a cleave button and can hold aggro because of it. In an ideal world, these are brought to the center stack and just cleaved down. You'll notice that they have everybody, like literally everybody stacked up. Healers, mages, all of them. That's just to help the ads come to this spot. We'll be doing the same thing. So, everybody here. I want to back up just a little bit, though, because that is not true for the entirety of the fight. They end up... I'll skip forward again. They end up stacking once the ads spawn. Healers do need to be a little bit outside here to heal these people. But generally speaking, you can assign 1 or 2 healers to take care of the people that get cocooned. This ad, on the other hand, these worms do need to be tanked. So if you are not one of the 2 tanks that is fighting for aggro up here, and I'll talk about those 2 tanks again in a second, it is your job to pick up worms. These worms are like prio number 1, because if you don't kill them quickly, they will enrage and start one-shotting people, and yeah, they'll one-shot people anyway if you're not a tank, so they need to be picked up.
If they enrage, they one-shot tanks.
Yeah. Okay. So let me rewind a little bit. It sucks that this person gets teleported, but because of the cleave that Fankris does with this debuff, you need to kill him either really, really fast or tank swap. The problem with that is that Fankris is not tauntable. So, one of the things that you'll hear later during the Hukaran fight over comms is they call for the primary tank to stop threatening.
Can you confirm that it's not tauntable? I thought I saw a taunt debuff when the tank swapped earlier. Right there.
There's a growl.
There's Tom's the second one.
Taunt's the second one.
Interesting.
That'll make it a lot easier.
That'll make it a joke. Alright, well, private servers had that one wrong. Give that
But
classic head.
my taunt only works like 60% of the time. It works every time.
Exactly. This is actually a really good fight to use the hit trinket out of ZG if you're the off tank. Then again, I would probably just go battle stance and start with a mocking blow, and then if that gets resisted, taunt. And if that gets resisted, challenging shout. You've got so many options here. The tank swap should only really have to happen once. Fankris is a bit of a joke in Classic. Dies really quick, so I don't anticipate that happening more than once, maybe twice. We'll have 3 tanks and 1 off tank for the ads, so everything will be fine. The other thing to note about the worms, though, is they do not spawn one at a time. This run got lucky and got one that spawned single. I think they can spawn in groups of up to 3.
It's 1 to 3.
Yeah, so you got to be really careful about the worms. Likewise, this mortal wound debuff that has now fallen off, we're gonna be careful with that at the beginning. I'm gonna be keeping a very, very close eye on how pressured the healers are getting, how much damage the tank is taking, everything else like that, and calling for the swap. But you need to be keeping an eye on your own debuff as well, and your own health, and don't be afraid to call for the swap if I don't, right? At some point, probably at like 4 stacks, you'll want to put a shield on, and then by 5 or 6, you're going to be swapping. So it is 10% per stack, I believe.
Correct.
But yeah.
So at 10 stacks,
after-
you take 0 healing.
Yeah. After Fankris dies, ads can continue to spawn for a few seconds. So tanks especially, don't just run. Don't just run away like this person's doing. Also, I forgot to mention this during the Friday meeting. Everybody be diligent about making me remind people to loot every boss. Every boss drops a signet
rep
that you can
token.
turn in for rep, but you have to manually loot it as an individual.
I think you
Uh,
need those tokens to
it-
go from Revered to Exalted, don't you?
Yeah, I believe
Yep.
there's a point later in the rep where you no longer get rep from clearing stuff, only tokens. So
Yep.
we should consider saving tokens until then.
No, we
Everybody
absolutely
should.
do.
100%.
Nobody should
But
be.
that's-
There is also a trash drop that can drop that gives you like a quest that does do rep past that point as well.
AQ20
believe-
drops it too, though, right? AQ20 bosses.
I think AQ20 bosses give rep immediately. I don't know if they drop the token or not.
I don't think they
It's
drop the
just
token.
flat rep.
I think it's just rep for the kills.
Okay, because I had read somewhere that you can get all the way to Exalted, never entering AQ40.
Yep, it just would take.
I'm pretty sure bosses in AQ40 still give rep past that threshold as well, but the trash stops giving rep.
Okay.
Like getting up to Revered, you can do in like 5 or 6 runs total because it's like 10 or 12,000 rep per run. But then once you hit Revered, you need to use the tokens and just kill bosses to go past that point.
So, getting back to this for a second here, there is a general rule that you as a tank can use an AQ, which is the bigger it is, the harder it hits. These things will smack you. Unfortunately, they tend not to smack you with melee hits, though you do see he just got hit for 1,000. They tend to smack you with poison. Let me see if I can get a poison hit in here. Maybe. Oh, also they sunder too. So.
Fuck yeah, I'm needing on that.
Ah, yes, there's the poison for 3,203. Also, it applies to debuffs.
Looks
So
like a
you're
poison
getting
hinders
smacked
these.
for poison for 3,000. You're getting sundered. You're getting a dot, and I'm pretty sure that this is another armor reduction or some shit. Put a shield on for this. Don't let these Don't let these.
That looks like a disease icon, not poison.
It is a. So this is a disease. The other one was the poison. It applies both.
Got it. So I will need to be alternating cleansing totems.
There's the poison. There's the disease. Yeah, these can be insta-cleansed. I honestly don't know what this disease does, but
we'll find out.
Like 90% sure that it's an armor reduction.
So I guess nature resist won't, like potions won't help with that disease.
Nope. I mean, we shouldn't be wasting those on trash anyway, because we're going to be using them a ton on bosses.
Yeah.
And the amount of poison damage you're going to be taking with that as the tank, and healing should be streaming in. It's not worth the nature protection potion. It's not going to save a life timing it that way.
Yeah.
The big thing that I want you guys to be aware of as tanks here is put a shield on so you don't like. Taking a poison bolt's not going to kill you. Taking a poison bolt and a few melee attacks while you've got a sunder stack on you will. So put a shield on to help with the melee stuff, and I will make the healers aware of the fact that poison is a thing that happens and needs to be taken care of.
I can cleanse that on the main tanks.
Yeah, they just need to know that there's going to be burst damage happening.
Something that it will be nicer for the trash and a little less resource intensive is using regular nature protection potions, because they're cheap enough you can kind of chuck them like candy. So if you take that big hit, or you know you're about to, go ahead and hit one, since it's just trash anyway.
Speaking of things that hit like trucks, these stingers, this is a wasp. They die pretty quick. They've only got 30,000 health. Let's see if he targets the stinger. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. This stinger, it's slightly bigger. It's got double the health. There's nothing you can do. This will one-shot you. It is the healer's job to be cleansing the poison that the wasps give out. But if you die here, that's why. Don't be surprised.
It can happen to anybody.
Yeah, it can happen to anybody.
So it's if the stinger hits somebody that has a wasp poison on them, right?
Correct. It's a one-shot guaranteed.
So the plan is somebody takes the stinger and runs away so that they're not near the wasps, right?
I believe it's ranged, despite the fact that it's a stinger.
So the stinger does it. He randomly charges people with the sting.
Yeah,
I think is how that works.
The
wasps
thing...
do random poison bolts, and then the stinger charges somebody, and if they have the poison dot on them, they die.
Yeah, there are two ways to deal with this. You either really quickly zerg down the wasps because they have less health, or single target the stinger and murder it real fast. These people will choose to kill the wasps first, as you're about to see, despite the fact that the stinger has a skull on it. Oh wait, that was the other video. Never mind. They do kill the stinger first. We probably will too.
As far as ways to kind of meta that, similar to the targeted target, if we have a druid with the targeted target macro set to cleanse poison and is just mouse wheeling it based off of the stinger's target. So the druid picks the stinger and is constantly just scrolling that. So even if the stinger swaps to somebody, it'll immediately dispel it before the stinger can zot them.
The GCD gets in the way of that.
Yeah,
not if you're not casting other items. That's how I am able to always dispel it in a fraction of a second during Lucy. I don't cast other things.
Yeah, but the difference is the Lucy Dispel macro will not cast unless somebody is dominated. Cleanse Poison will.
I can't, I guess... So like Cure Disease does, but I can't dispel magic a target that doesn't have magic on it.
There are two poisons cleansing for the druid. One is something that cleanses one immediately and applies a buff that cleanses one every couple seconds for a little while. The other is just cleanse one immediately. So
if you tie it to the cleanse one immediately, it should work.
Yes.
Okay. I still worry about batching with that. But we can play with
it. The charge is very quick, and if it touches the player, they're just dead. So,
I mean, both things should be occurring. The person that gets it should be moving away, and the cleanser.
You don't have time to move away before it charges you. It targets.
Sounds like it's a Surger style of just.
I guess we're just gonna have to save a battle res for that person.
Yeah, no. You either cleanse the poisons as soon as they go out, or kill the stinger before it happens. We will inevitably have a couple people die on these until we zerg things down fast enough. It's the next point of order here is, see these two hunters up here? Don't be hunters. Don't be hunters. We'll probably have hunters pulling. I'd like to think our hunters are better than this, but if the tanks decide that they're going to be doing the pulling, don't be these people. Because what do you do when you get multiple packs?
We got a double stack.
The answer is people die.
Get the poison off. Poison's very bad.
They handle this fairly well, but people will die.
Hunters, you gotta use your eyes.
One person's dead already.
Right fucking behind you.
I guarantee that they were not planning to pop their sappers on that pack.
I missed it. I got it.
Now, real quick, we didn't see these yet. These lashers also come with these packs occasionally. These are mini Sartoras. Tank them with your back against a wall. Other than that, they're just, we just murder them real quick. That's why you tank them with your back against a wall, by the way.
Maybe you'll get him in a second. Yeah, maybe. I got you, Sam.
So
They also cleave. Mini Sartoras do whirlwinds.
instead of a druid, since Bacon is going to be in melee targeting the thing anyway, Bacon, while just white hitting it, can just be spamming the shaman cure poison since he's already going to be on the target and can save the global cooldowns to not be triggering other stuff anyway.
This is such an embarrassing question to ask. Do shamans have a single target cure poison?
Yes.
Yep, that's why I switched to my shaman to make sure I remembered it right.
Yeah.
And they've got one for poison and disease, I believe.
Yes. We have the poison, we have the disease, we have the offensive purge, and we have the totems.
I want you all to take a note here. He's swapping out gear. There are a couple reasons why he's swapping out gear. The first is you don't want to wear SGC for Huhuran. But generally speaking, you want more mitigation for Huhuran. If you've got good nature resist pieces, I think some of the tier 2 has nature resist on it and that kind of thing. Generally speaking, you want a bit more bulk for Huhu. She hits really freaking hard after 30%.
So you gotta bulk up.
Oh, he switched to actual wrath.
Yeah, I mean, he put a life-giving gem on, You'll also see him shield swap once 30% comes.
So do we have Mel tank that instead?
Huhu also requires multiple tanks. And we'll talk about that in a second.
I think ideally we'll have Mel take over right before the enrage, but the fight may not let us do that. It depends on
everybody should have every tank should have. So I'll put it this way: we're gonna pick 2 tanks because it is a 2-tank fight. We're gonna pick 2 tanks that will have their mitigation stuff on. We'll be standing in front of the boss doing in front of boss things. Other tanks that aren't actively tanking will be in nature resist gear doing soaking, right? There will likely be enough soakers that I will be able to designate a 3rd tank to stand in front of the boss and do in front of boss things, but that's really overkill at that point. There is no mitigation benefit to a deep prot tank, right? Deep prots excel because stance dancing is a thing and that kind of stuff. But Fury prots can still put on your mitigation sets. If you're listening to this and you're like, Lorak, I'm a Fury prot and I haven't got a mitigation set. Yeah, I know. There are a few of you that are lacking in that area, and we're not going to put you in front of this boss. It's fine. So
that's why I was saying that is Mel's mitigation set is pretty top tier, whereas the others are like, yeah, but I like crit and other stuff too.
So yeah.
For sorry, just quick for mitigation. Like I've got a pretty good set. So we've been, giving me a lot of stuff for a while. But is there anything besides mitigation to focus on for this boss, like other than just my straight mitigation set?
Nope, not really. Physical mitigation is the important thing for tanks on Huhu. She does a stacking nature damage dot that cannot be resisted. So there's no reason to put nature resist on. That's why the soakers are doing it, and I'm going to show you positioning here in a second. This is very important. This is bad. I don't know why he's standing. Well, okay, I guess I do know why he's standing here. He's standing here to avoid parries. I don't know if I would do this. We're gonna have to talk about this for a second here, because due to his positioning here, he's gonna get Wyvern Stung. It's just it's inevitable. This other tank over here is currently the one at 100% threat. Well, let me let this play. I'll talk to you about why I don't like this.
Reorientation process where they realign and work out what the goals can be.
Okay, so that was the frenzy. You can barely see it. Hunters will take care of that in an ideal world. And Wyvern Sting? Where the heck is the Wyvern Sting? There it is. Okay. So the Wyvern Sting hits 10 people, and it's a small AoE. So stacking on the melee like this makes you much more likely to get Wyvern Stung. The only people that we will be cleansing Wyvern Stings off of are tanks. So it's not the end of the world if you as a tank get Wyvern Stung here, because we will cleanse you. The problem is cleansing it does like 3,000 damage. So it's not ideal. It's not an ideal situation. If I were the tank, I would be yelling at all of these melee DPS to go stack over here, and I would be over here. Because parries are still something that you want to avoid while you're building second threat, but you don't want to be in the pile like this.
Did they say battle chickens and things were taking Wyvern Stings?
Yes, summoned minions are taking Wyvern Stings. They do not soak the Poison Bolt Volley.
Okay.
So you'll notice the Hunter Pet is one of the people that gets Wyvern Stung. Now, at this point, you can see on the target debuffs here that there is some poison on our deer tank. I think one of those might be the Wyvern Sting poison. No. I'm not sure what the second... Does this not stack in stacks? Does this stack as like the Incinerates on Gar does?
Good question.
Regardless, there's a stacking poison. So what ends up happening is, let me rewind this just a second here. You'll notice that the tank literally stops doing anything for a second. He'll hit his escape key and he just stands there. That is because they're trying to tank swap. And Huhuran, unlike Fenris, is untauntable. So this person needs to drop their stacks, they stop doing their things, the second tank takes over. This person goes behind, and they repeat. Again, like Fenris, hopefully we only have to do one cycle of tank swaps. However, notice the shield. If you're not putting a shield on around 30%, you gonna die. Put a shield on. So here she's at 30%. Pay attention here to how much melee damage this person takes, even with an Elementium Bulwark on in a mitigation set. 1,000, 1,800, 1,000, 1,200. This boss is so much damage. So much damage. Please. Stone shields. Shields. Mitigation gear.
Yeah, he used shield wall, mitigation gear, Thunder Fury debuff, but shame on him for not having a stone shield.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also a perfect spot to save your shield wall for, by the way. Fenris doesn't need it. Scarum doesn't need it. Sartura... Don't use it on Sartura because we'll kill her without it eventually anyway. But this is the spot for it.
And just so I'm clear, that's Huhuran, right?
Yes.
That's Princess Huhu.
Huhu. He's got 2 stacks of this dot. I want to say 5 or 6 is the swap point, but we're gonna have to pay attention to how much damage everybody's taking and how the healers are doing and everything else like that. That's going to be a number that we adjust, similar to how we did Fire Maul at the very beginning. Like, can the tank take 30 stacks? We found out the answer was no. Now we swap it like 10, you know? So, at 2 stacks right now, it's doing about 450 damage per take.
It's an investigation. We employ it as an investigation.
Hey, shadow protection.
Here
Shadow
it is.
protection on the right here.
And again, this dot does not take into account nature resistance. So, tanks do not need to worry about nature resistance. We want you in physical mitigation gear for the obvious reasons. And we will have you stand... Actually, I have to go back a little bit because I need to point this out. This is extraordinarily important. This is actually kind of... I don't like this. Let me see when he gets into position here. Okay, so she's still fine. He could back up a little bit more. You want to be at max range from Huhu here. The furthest you can get from her hitbox, the better. If the melee need to move forward because you backed up one step too far, that's fine. All of these people need to be inside of the hitbox. What that does is at 30%, when she starts throwing poison bolt volleys out, it hits the closest 15 people. So if everybody else is in the hitbox and you're at the hitbox, you don't take that damage. Which is, you know, less healing for the healers to have to worry about. Good idea. Now we get to the most annoying trash in the instance before Twin Imps. Asterisks before Twin Imps. These Anubisath defenders have random abilities that come in sets of 4. Every single one of these is going to be completely random, completely reactive. I will be doing lots of callouts on these. There is only one thing that tanks have to worry about, I think.
Also, it's worth noting, if we wipe on these, it's not going to be the same debuffs, or the same abilities. It's random each time you pull them.
They're annoying like that. Okay. So the only thing that tanks need to worry about here, well, I say only thing. The only ability that tanks need to worry about here is Meteor. When there's a Meteor going on, everybody needs to stack up. So when a Meteor is happening, you'll notice that they've got a very tight stack here. You want to be, unlike Huhu, as close to the hitbox as you can get, so that if a Meteor lands on you, as opposed to the 39 other people, you don't just bite it. They've also got some healers stacking on top of the tank to help with that. That's something we can help with too. The Meteor's damage is insane, but it is split among everybody that it hits. So if everybody's stacked nice and tight, it doesn't do anything.
Fun fact, same mechanic as on 4 Horsemen.
Speaking of other things, there are ads that spawn every once in a while. Most of them just die. The little ones, especially, these just die.
About the Meteor, do we know what the total damage is? Like? It's split, so I for some reason was thinking it was like 50,000 split between all the targets.
I think it's slightly more than that.
It's
like
a lot.
80.
It's a lot.
For some reason, I remember it being fire damage, like potentially resistible and such. That if we get into a situation where people start dying, something's going sideways, people can't get into a place, there are other options. And I think at one point we were choosing to like just sacrifice somebody. Whoever it was dropping on just got away, went and died, and everyone else takes 0 damage.
That is an option.
There are ways to... So there are other things that can go wrong too, right? Meteor and its opposite ability, Plague, cannot be on the same unit. But if you chain pull, people can still have the Plague during a Meteor boss. You can't stack with Plague, so those people just get sacrificed. That might be what you're remembering. There are other things that, you know...
I think if you accidentally pull 2 and they're both Meteor, that's probably when you want one person to just die.
anytime something goes sideways, if it's clear that people can't group up and you have like a mage or somebody, especially somebody that can move quick, that is going to be the center of it, that person can blink, sprint away and sacrifice themselves, because it's better that that one person die than the 10 people that were trying to stack on them all die anyway, because the rest of the raid wasn't there.
Yeah. So on every single one of these, we will start stacked. Because plague is the only reason that you don't want to be stacked, and the plague person can run out before that becomes a problem. To your point, though, Melkita, if you pull 2 of these, we wipe. These are not the kinds of mobs that we deal with in multiples.
I mean, ideally, well, right. But I'm saying that you shouldn't just, hey, everybody wipe. You should still try to kill them.
Yeah. So they're all running away right now because they also explode upon death occasionally. That's another one of the abilities that they can have. You as tanks will notice, hopefully, that the mob becomes immune to your attacks. That is your key to run the frick away. These have large aggro radiuses, and like I said a minute ago, pulling 2 of them is not an option. So, patience is key. See if I can find some with some other abilities. This one's Meteor again. You'll notice, however, that they are in 2 stacks now instead of 1. It's because it has a different ability. I don't know what. But given the fact that the melee are taking damage, maybe Thunderclap? Yeah, I think I just saw the damage marker. So Thunderclap's another one of the abilities that they can have. Because these are large, their Thunderclap has a very massive aggro or damage radius, which is why the ranged are all the way over here off screen. If they Thunderclap, let the ranged move, don't move the mob.
I'm gonna grab that one that's patrolling. Get everybody topped off quickly. Is it Shadow? Thunderclap, I think.
It's another Thunderclap mob. Oh, these bigger things that are spawning here, those need to be tanked. The warriors.
Stuns for the ads.
They hit for a decent amount.
Out. Moving it up. Pulling this.
So tanks, when you're picking up those warriors, as far as off tanks, you're probably going to tab and taunt, because it's going to walk up into AoE or something like that. Be careful not to taunt the big guy off of the other tank.
I'm actually not even sure if these are tauntable or not.
We'll find out.
Yep.
I think you're right. If I remember right, something wasn't tauntable.
Yeah, there are at least a handful of trash mobs in here that aren't tauntable. I think that the Anubiseth line might be it.
You guys still getting hit back there, ranged? No, we're good. Okay. Want to add?
Alright, nothing fun and exciting off this last one.
Worth noting for any caster DPS that are listening in, these mobs have a couple magic immunities. It's either, was it Fire and Shadow or Frost and Arcane?
Yes, they will. I'm going to pause this here because he's doing something very important. They will either reflect, and it's not immunity, it's a reflect.
Oh, it's reflect, even worse.
Don't kill yourselves. Yeah, they reflect either Shadow and Fire or Frost and Arcane. That's really easy to deal with, though, because the first thing that you do as a mage is put Detect Magic up, and if it gets reflected, then you know that it's reflecting Frost and Arcane. And yeah.
Was it Arcane? I don't think it's...
I thought it was Shadow Arcane.
I think it's Shadow Arcane, yeah.
That sounds correct.
It's not Fire and Shadow, because Warlocks only have Fire and Shadow, so they wouldn't be able to do anything.
Yeah.
So the
BBM
warlocks can choose to not attack until there's a detect magic on it. As far as
They,
their
they should not
shadow
attack until there's a detect magic on. Correct.
Yeah.
They should be waiting.
If their curse gets reflected, they know it's shadow as well.
True.
But yeah, yeah, don't kill yourselves on this. Okay, so something very important is about to happen, Mauser, and maybe Grass and /War 5 if you guys could share the bindings by now. It's about to take off as Thunder Fury.
Sad face.
Yeah, Thunder Fury goes in the bags. This boss is immune to magic, which means Thunder Fury's proc does literally nothing, which is the vast majority
does
of
the extra nature damage on it.
Yeah, that's the vast majority of the extra threat that Thunder Fury generates, meaning that for this boss specifically, other weapons will generate more threat than Thunder Fury.
Okay. I'd like to sim with you at some point for a couple things. Like in that case, just which of my weapons would be best to wear, whether Maladath with a dagger or 2 daggers, that kind of thing.
Neither. Put a shield on for this boss. It hits like a freaking truck.
Okay.
Probably
Maladath and a shield.
Yeah, Maladath and a shield. So I'm going to talk about Vecna Lash specifically. I will also mention for warlocks that might end up tanking this person and watching this video what's going on the other side of the room. But Vecna Lash here, the big sword dude, hits like a truck. Like I said, a general rule for AQ, the bigger it is, the harder it hits. This is another mitigation fight. You'll notice that he's got some Wrath pieces on. Don't go in here as like your typical Fury Prot build. You will get one shot. The beauty of this fight, though, is that there's bugs all over the place for you to build Rage on before the fight starts. Aggro radiuses on these are actually relatively short. Go ahead, Melkita.
So, I didn't know when to mention it, but how many of our warriors are respecing to something other than Fury Prot?
Many.
Are we? Do we have them picked out? Do we have?
It really.
Do they know?
I don't know.
Who they
So,
are?
depending on when gates open, people's availabilities are different. I don't know who's going to be available day one. You know what I mean?
But can we just? I guess can we figure out? Can we ask the tanks that are here, or maybe put a poll out in the?
We don't know when gates are going to open.
But whether
But you can like I am
available.
available like currently, unless I'm going on vacation or something. Like every Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to be available.
In theory. In the past 2 weeks, I've had a dozen different people that had to step out of raid because of either sickness or natural disaster things happening, or family. So yeah, I don't like planning ahead like that, because if I tell people to respec right now, and then I tell them just kidding, we're gonna run into issues.
But they could have a spec planned and queued up and ready to go.
Yeah, I will tell you right now, the 2 guarantees: Brass will be Fury Prot, Melkita will be Deep Prot. I know that some players
like to play for a week before they play this back. Like, I don't know, just the learning curve of switching just gets you used to playing, hitting the buttons in the right rotation.
It is extremely likely that we will leave Adamiri in Fury Prot, and I haven't decided whether or not we leave Mauser and Dice in Fury Prot as well, because we are going to need those additional tanks every once in a while, but having more damage is also a good thing, and Full Fury does do significantly more damage. So there is some considerations there. But definitely, Brass will definitely be Fury Prot, Melkita will definitely be Deep Prot. Everybody else, hold tight. I'll let you know. I heard somebody.
Oh, I was just gonna say, did you figure in? I know it's up in the air, but in my case, would I still would I be going to mitigation, or do you think just straight up Fury? I mean, if I wasn't staying Fury Prot.
Yeah, if we're gonna use you on a boss, it's gonna be for like heavy threat things, like standing in front of Hoo-Hoo and just frickin' smacking her as the first tank, for instance. which makes me
Just-
think that I want you to stay free. Like I said, we'll talk.
Okay, just because everything I'm learning right now, my entire focus is assuming I'm tanking. So it's like I just don't want to be wasting my time learning stuff when I should be learning other things.
No. Every single tank that we have tanking Blackwing Lair right now should know all of this, because no matter what we do the first day, the second day could be different, and future weeks definitely will. You know, eventually we're going to kill Cthulhu and have to rotate people in and out again anyway. So, yeah.
The thing is, all of our warriors, at least our 10 most likely to be in progression with us, should all have a solid understanding of how to DPS and how to tank.
I mean, here's the thing. Tanking and DPSing, tanking as Fury Prot and DPSing are only different in two different ways, right? You lose your aggro when you stance, or you lose your rage when you stance, and you don't have a whirlwind. That's it, right? You hit revenge when revenge pops up. You hit bloodthirst when bloodthirst pops up. You've got heroic strikes. Everything else is the same.
But it includes what keys you have hotkeyed. Like, and I apologize, Adamiri, for making you the example, but Glorak and I were looking through the logs the other day and saw that when you got forced into Zerker stance that you were cleaving Neff instead of heroic striking. I'm guessing because your Zerker stance just has cleave there instead of heroic strike, because that's when you're DPSing.
It does, yes.
So that's something that for various fights that you want to be more aware that when you're swapping things back and forth, that you are aware of where your keys are different and which buttons are the better ones to push.
Yeah, that goes back to a UI thing, because I talk about UI with Warriors a lot, because Warriors have the most complex UI setups. In theory, they should. Highly recommend that abilities that are common to various stances and various roles are in the same spot across your stances, right?
Yeah.
For instance, the heroic strike to cleave thing, I don't know if I would do that, right? Because you still want heroic strike available to you in Zerker stance, and you still want cleave available to you in defensive stance. So
Agreed.
Be careful about how you set your UI up, because if you feel like swapping from Fury Prot to Deep Prot to Full Fury takes you time to get used to, that probably means your UI is fucked. In reality, Bloodthirst should just turn into Shield Slam, or Revenge should just turn into Whirlwind, right? And everything else is basically the same.
Put Overpower with Revenge and Whirlwind too.
Take Overpower off your bars.
Overpower is good if you're able to stance. That's about it.
Yeah, if you're already in battle stance and Bloodthirst is on cooldown and you're DPSing, why wouldn't you overpower?
If
Why
you're
aren't you
DPSing,
in
why
Zerker
aren't you in
stance?
Zerker stance?
Because I care about debuffs.
Well, if you're in battle stance, you're not DPSing.
Well, obviously you do still overpower. It's not something I think you should take off your bar. I agree. They're both
Take
right.
Overpower off your bars.
What would
Take
you
Rend
change?
off of your bars.
What would you change the button that is Whirlwind and Revenge to in battle stance then?
Thunderclap?
No,
Why not?
have both.
because
Overpower can't be dodged, parried.
those are
or
keyboards and
blocked.
Thunderclap is a mouse wheel.
Why would you put Thunderclap on mouse wheel?
Because you mouse wheel down and it feels like you're thunderclapping animation.
Seems bad.
No. Revenge,
That is the best reason I have ever heard.
I
Revenge.
actually
Use that for
kinda
War
agree.
Stomp, too.
It's nice.
Revenge, Thunderclap, and Whirlwind are all of your secondary cooldown abilities.
Yeah, like
Regardless, we should not be arguing about UI. We should be going over all the information.
Yeah, that's all personal
UI can come
preference.
later.
Regardless,
Get back on track.
Yeah, make sure that especially as tanks, because the tanks far more often than DPS warriors will swap into DPS roles. So because you guys are going back and forth so often, make sure that you're not hampering yourself with a learning curve because your buttons are all over the place. Try to keep that consistent for yourselves.
I guess one of the things that I see for progression is if a tank does end up dying on one of the early bosses, a DPS warrior that has done some tanking before and still has their world buffs should be stepping up into that position as an off tank in their place.
Nope. Defiance is far too powerful.
The DPS warrior with the world buffs will outweigh that 15%.
Not in tanking gear. And it's not 15%, it's multiplicative.
Combined with all the other increases.
Yeah.
That said, another idea that I just kind of thought about was even warriors that do get benched or tanks that do get benched, having them a different spec so that we have a different option. Like if we have too many DPS warriors and not enough tanks, or maybe too many tanks and not enough DPS.
So here's the other thing about Fury Prot, and part of the reason that I'm tempted to leave all of our Fury Prot warriors in Fury Prot even for progression. You don't really lose that much damage. I still consistently top DPS meters as Fury Prot. You only lose extra crit damage from Impale and 1 rage every 3 seconds during combat. It's not huge. So there's not a lot.
Tell that to Trock and Primal.
I keep up with Trock on my Fury Prot warrior.
Yeah, I did within the way too. He was rarely more than 10% ahead of me.
He's also in PvP gear, not.
But it's PvP gear that's max DPS.
Yeah.
And there was that time I was top DPS on Neff, like really early.
Yeah.
Which I was even surprised by, actually.
My point is there isn't a lot convincing me to tell the Fury Prot warriors to go full Fury. But like I said, there are considerations there.
I guess we don't have a lot of warriors.
We don't have one now.
It becomes an issue of benching options. It's do you keep your best players in the raid and have them swap specs, or do you have people with certain specs sit out and bring in people that maybe aren't quite as good but have the right spec?
Yeah. And quite honestly, the extra DPS that Impale gives is not going to make the difference there. Like, for instance, if we go in there and I've got like 9 tanks available and I want to bring Adamir in and I say, hey Adamir, you're DPSing today. Like, he can come in as Fury Prot and keep up with everybody else just fine, In fact, there have been several fights in the past week even that our Fury Prot tanks have been on the meters in a significant way.
Our success in here is going to hinge primarily on the tanks doing their job, cleanses happening, and healers keeping the right people up.
Yep. Yeah, it's not going to be a DPS thing. That being said, hey, people that have Annihilators. Vecnalash, over here, melee boss, is immune to Fairy Fire and Curse of Recklessness, which is actually a good thing, because Curse of Recklessness on this boss would be scary as heck. Also immune to Annihilator, unfortunately. So, yeah, Annihilator's proc is technically a shadow magic thing. I don't know why. However, if any of you have Bash Gooders, Bash Gooder is a godsend on Twin Imps. It doesn't stack with Fairy Fire, which is why we don't normally use it. But because we can't Fairy Fire this boss, it is really nice to have Bash Gooders here. So if you come across Bash Gooders, or if you've got them standing in your banks somewhere, bring them. Bring them to AQ.
What?
Bash Gooder.
LBRS rare spawn. Linking it in guild right now.
All of that said, somehow it is not immune to Demo Shout. At least that's what I've been told. And I don't think it's immune to Thunderclap either. So do those things.
Those are both physical attacks, or physical aspects, I think.
Now I want you to pay attention real quick to the aggro range here. It's not as big as some of the other bosses, but it's significant. And here's the issue. The Warlock tank needs to be ready too, right? So you're looking over here, you're looking over here, your camera's on a swivel, lining up with the Warlock. I'm doing a pull timer, yada yada yada. But everybody needs to be ready for this.
Aki, I'm ready. Dude. I'm ready on you, bro. Let him pull it back.
Okay, right there, combat starts. Now I want you to pay attention to something very, very important here. Do not pop Blood Rage before you get into combat. Blood Rage is how you gain aggro on Vecnalash. If you do not have this available, Giant Sword Dude starts running across the room at everybody else, and it's a bad time. So you pop Blood Rage. Then you can pop either Battle Shout. If you're in range of Demo Shout, that works too. Literally anything that generates aggro to get him to come towards you so you can start smacking him. Don't do this. Turning your back to the boss means you get dazed. He tried to strafe, but he turned a little bit too much. Strafing is good, turning your back is not. Okay. Now, these people bring the Twin Imps over to this side of the room. This is the more traditional strategy. However, I think that tanking them on the other side is a little bit easier, less positioning to worry about. So, if we choose to do that, we'll play with it. We'll probably do it on that side first, just because I think it'll be easier. You will tank him in the corner here next to the staircase, like this is happening, just on the other side. Yeah, flip-flop. Hits like a truck. Death Wish. I'm okay with this, but I would rather the DPS just chill. Be careful about popping offensive cooldowns like this on Vecnalash.
Teleporting. No, don't go. Range get back. Range get back.
If, oh, by the way, I don't know if you're noticing, but he's getting hit for multiple attacks at a time, over 1,000 each. If you decide to pop Death Wish, be sure that you've got a defensive ready. Because this Unbalancing Strike increases your chance to be crit. And actually, DBM yells at you to pop defensives. This is nice. You will get smacked. That's just how this boss works. That being said, it's another one of the reasons that I don't think Death Wish is necessary. Your enrage uptime as a Fury Prot tank on this boss will be massive. So in theory, you're going to have plenty of threat anyway. Okay, they teleport. Important thing to note here, after they teleport, you do not leave, right? He was there when the teleport happened. That's what matters. After the twin gets there, then you can start walking away. This will proximity aggro on whatever's closest until something else picks it up. So you wait for it to appear, then you start walking away so that if it hits you, it's going to hit you with a Shadow Bolt or whatever until the Warlock tank picks it up. You do not, however, stand next to it. If you stay here, he does a big arcane thingy that I don't actually think I've ever seen because most people are smart enough not to stand next to this boss. Don't stand next to this boss. That being said, it's like melee range. It's really close. Once this phase is over, you need to walk back to where you were and get ready to pick up the next boss when it teleports. Here's your timer for that. DBM has it. Pay attention to this. But one of the things that you'll notice is that this is not perfectly accurate all the time. So you need to be ready. Right now you are very bored because you're staring at a thing that's, you're not doing anything at all. Don't zone out here, because if you don't pick up the boss, we wipe. So you'll see timer is 5 seconds past now, almost 10 seconds past now, then the teleport happens. That reaction speed right there, the teleport happens, he goes right in. Do that. Do that. Okay.
So the timer is for the cooldown on it, not necessarily when it's going to
Correct.
happen. Okay.
Correct. So you get the boss back against the wall. This is so important. Make sure every single time you grab this boss, you're dragging it all the way to the wall. If it inches further this way, they can heal. That's part of the reason that that's the entire reason that you tank these across the room from one another. If they're too close together, they heal. If they heal too much, we wipe. Alright? So make sure you're backing this all the way up against the wall every time. The other thing to note here is that every teleport is a full threat wipe. So I will be telling the DPS when to move. It will not be a preemptive move, because I don't trust our DPS to hold back while a tank is in mitigation gear wearing a shield. But you'll see a lot of people that when the teleport comes off of cooldown, their melee will already be running across the room, their range will already be running across the room. We're going to be a little bit slower than that so that you guys have 5 or 6 seconds to smack the boss before the melee get there. It'll extend the fight length a little bit, but otherwise melee start getting smacked one after the other. The other thing I want you to note here is that there is a Scorpion enemy bar over here. Vecnalash will make bugs big. Those big bugs need to be tanked. So if you are a tank on this fight that cannot contribute any significant DPS, you go over here, you pick these up while the ranged kill them. There are also exploding bugs on the caster side of the room that you as tanks will never have to worry about.
Can I poke fun for a second?
Sure.
You just said you tanks that can't contribute any significant DPS after we just had the conversation about how our off tanks can contribute significant DPS.
I was talking to Melkita. Hello, deep prop friend.
You say that as though Melkita won't be just tanking the fight.
Probably not. Having a Fury Prot tank this is extremely valuable because of Enrage uptime. Every single time this boss crits you, which is often, you get 25% extra melee damage, or 25% extra physical damage, which leads to threat leads that look like this, even while wearing a shield and mitigation gear.
The biggest determinant if we change up the strat at all while we're doing it is how hard it is to keep the tank up versus how much more threat the tank needs to keep it off of the DPS.
Yeah. I think at this point, Adamiri's mitigation set is probably a little bit better than Grass's. Adamiri, did we give you a bulwark recently?
Yeah, I've got a bulwark.
Yeah. So we might end up using Adamiri for this. I don't know. I'll have to figure out whose mitigation. I actually need to. Yeah, we need to figure out whose mitigation set is best suited for this fight in particular. But it'll definitely be a Fury Prot tank because the Enrage is insane. So I just want to point this out real quick. He gets hit for 2,715 damage, resisted 1,000 of it. He does have a Shadow Prot applied here. Generally speaking, you'll only take one of these every once in a while, but be very, very careful that if you are at, like, I don't know, 3,000 health or whatever, after an unbalancing strike hits you for a shit ton and then they teleport, hopefully the healers are still paying attention to you, right? I will remind them. But if you notice that your health is low after a teleport happens, Like, take the time to pop a freaking health stone or something, whip a root tuber, bandage, I don't know, because you can die there. Again, that is mostly a healer's job. In fact, it is entirely a healer's job, but when you can do things, right? He just AoE taunted. I don't know why.
That might have been the other tank.
No, that was him. You want to see the animation happen? I don't get it.
Probably just accidentally hit a button.
Yeah. It's worth noting though that you can tank this as a warrior. You can't hit it obviously, but it is not immune to spells. So things like taunt and challenging shout do work. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Let the warlocks do it.
Yeah, he may have AoE taunted there in an attempt to hit this, because the warlock may have gotten low for a moment. I don't know, I wasn't paying that much attention.
Teleport cooldown is off.
Yeah, this blizzard also hits like a truck. The caster is the only one that casts it, so you only have to deal with this blizzard when you're waiting for the swap to happen. But, you know, be aware of this. Oh, also, while we're talking about who is tanking this, there are two of you. Whatever's happening on this side is also happening on the other side in the reverse order, right? So, yeah. Notice how he has, like, he had 14,000 health there for a second. He popped a life-giving gem. Life-giving gem is clutch on this fight. He was at 50% with 14,000 health. So the swap happened, and almost immediately he took close to 8,000 damage. Wear mitigation gear. Have cooldowns. I'm going to have to find out who has life-giving gems too, because those are very good.
I got it the same time. I got the bulwark.
Cool.
Doesn't make me any less scared though.
You should be scared. This is a boss to be scared of. Like I said, the bigger it is in AQ, the harder it hits, and this one is a very big boss.
He's a big boy.
Mm-hmm. That being said, there is one thing that's bigger. You'll find out soon.
All range on Scorpion.
It's a giant worm.
Yeah, it is.
Start getting some fear words.
The twins share a health pool, so when one dies, the other dies. That being said, this is actually one of the very few fights in the entire instance where having casters is better than having melee, both because you can't reduce the boss's armor, which effectively reduces all melee damage by like 20-something%, because Sunder only does so much. These guys actually end up using Expose on this. We might too, maybe. Threat shouldn't be an issue, so we'll find out. The melee one has more health than the caster one, but they do not share a health pool as a combined number. They share a health pool proportionally. So damage dealt to the caster actually counts more toward the shared health pool than damage dealt. It's super weird. Not that I know.
Also, the range don't have to run as far, so they can theoretically have higher uptime on their DPS.
Yep.
So yeah, mages are gonna do a shit ton on that fight.
Now they're clearing bugs here because unlike the video that we watched previously, the Onslaught video where they did a bunch of trash skips, these people are going to do the thing that we're going to do, which is pull these packs back into the Twin M's room. Note how close these pat together. We gotta be real careful, real careful. So each of these packs has a random number of these Slayers and these Mind Flayers, Mind Slavers, I don't know, Mind whatevers, and a champion. let them pull this, and then I'll talk about each one individually.
Does that target say Zugger on it?
Melees go to the left.
Okay, so this is why I keep yelling at people in Blackwing Lair. Everybody needs to LOS these. They do a very, very long range mind flay, which actually you might see here. Nope. So they need to be LOS on the pull. These Mind Slayers will likely be our first targets. We might kill the Slayers first. I don't know. It really doesn't matter too much, but these ones are more annoying in my opinion, so we'll probably end up killing these first. These will mind control you. They do a mind flay, a mind blast, yada yada yada. What does that mean as a tank? You're taking a bunch of shadow damage. If you do not have a shadow protection on from a priest, yell at a priest to put shadow protection on you. I will also be yelling at the priest to keep shadow protection on people. Also means that you don't need to wear a shield because they don't deal a ton of physical damage. The Slayers, on the other hand, do, the mini Sartoras. Now you're noticing, like I said earlier, everything back to a wall. If you're tanking something in AQ, your back should be to a wall. These do not have a knockback, however they have something much worse. When these die, and this is where Melkita shines. When these die, they apply this debuff here. This debuff will burn a shit ton of mana, which is why they can't be near casters when they die. And it also fears you. All of our actual Fury Warriors that are already in Berserker stance can just, do the thing. But you can only do the thing once, and if this has multiple packs, you're probably going to end up killing them closer than 30 seconds together. And this fear is not dispellable, you're noticing. He's not, there's no icon that he's feared, he's just running. There's nothing we can do about that, so be careful about where you tank those. This is a guard situation where if these are not tanked in the proper location when they are killed, I'm gonna be mad, right? So I'll be yelling at the DPS to not kill them in the wrong spots, but make sure you're tanking them in the right spots. These Slayers can just die. Nobody cares. Everybody runs. Now, these champions, Frenzy, it has been rumored that this can either be trank shotted or dispelled. I'm not sure which. We're going to be doing both. We'll find out which one works. However, these do hit like trucks. I would put a shield on for these.
These are also the last ones killed, right?
That depends. So if our healers are running into issues on these packs, we might kill that one first. They shouldn't, though. Given our healers, we should be okay. Ah, there's the Mind Flay. Notice how long of a range that is. It's what happens when you peek the doorway. Don't peek the doorway. And because people peek the doorway, now the tank is MC'd. Good job, team.
Demo shout it, G-Poop. Demo shout it.
Other than that, these packs are pretty straightforward. You want them spread out basically as much as you can inside of this room. Even he stands. He's got Death Wish running. Stance dances for Berserker Rage anyway, just out of instinct. Yeah. I am 98% sure that those also do a knockback that we're just not seeing because they're killing them quickly enough. Like I said, tank everything with your back to a wall.
It is nice to see that those are tauntable.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's the Anubis that aren't in general. Okay, so they kill 2 packs inside here and they're riding out. This third pack here can be pulled. Are they going to pull it back? Okay, they do pull it back. Alright. We are definitely going to be pulling it back. Our dear hunter friend that does the pull might die. That's unfortunate, but deal with it. That third pack, these cannot be kited. None of this can be kited. It outruns hunters. Sad times. But there are 3 packs that pad along there that you can safely pull back in here. And I think there's a 4th one that you can almost get if it pats in the right spot at the right time. You'll notice that this one just has a bunch of Mind Slayers. When this happens, it's chaos, right? People are getting feared all over the place. Everybody's getting Mind Flayed. The issue with the Mind Flay too is it doesn't always target the highest threat target. Neither does the Mind Blast. Random people in the raid could be taking damage here. So, chaos, chaos, chaos. These packs will be the hardest part of AQ. This is a professional group of professional raiders that is making it look like a joke. But we probably won't wipe on these as much as we'll wipe on things like Sartura. But we will likely have many deaths during these packs.
Feign resisted.
Trying to get back up there. Hunters, what we got next?
Alright, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here.
Can I pick Melkita to be one of them?
To be one of the deaths?
Yeah.
I hope
It
not.
makes me giggle.
I'm already
let's not
dead.
have tanks die. On the inside. So we'll move up and kill this one. Part of the reason that you pull these back is A, the knockback, B, the fear. There's just a lot of things that you do not want to be in this hallway, potentially pulling more if you get hit by those things. The mind control can also fuck you over. But yeah, so we like pulling these back as far as we possibly can. I would not have tanked this Mind Slayer here, but again, people didn't LOS it, so there's only so much you can do there. Moving on. Champions also do a relatively short knockback, so backs to walls all day. They also do an AoE Fear. I believe the Champion's AoE Fear is also a threat drop. So off tanks wants to be outside of their range, like for the Blackwing Lair packs, ready to pick them up. Let's skip a bunch of this. The other thing I just want to point out real quick is you'll see that this tank pops Death Wish basically on cooldown. I don't see that a lot in current content, mostly because we move from boss to boss quickly enough that if you popped it on trash, you probably wouldn't have it for a boss. Be careful about popping it on trash in AQ. There are some trash mobs that you do not really want to take extra damage from. But if you're on the primary target, the primary kill target, and you know that it's a target that doesn't do a ton of physical damage or a ton of whatever, resistance this is going to reduce, don't be afraid to pop this, right? It's 3-minute cooldown, it's relatively short. A little bit of extra threat on the first few kill targets in a trash pack will help us get through them quicker.
Alright, skulls on the right. Mark them up.
More quickly, I should say. Alright, so we're gonna skip ahead. There's just a ton of these packs. They're all over the place. Eventually, we will get to the bigger, badder packs that are slightly easier to deal with. Remember how I said don't be those hunters at the beginning? Really, really, really do not be those hunters, because these packs have an enormous aggro radius. When I say enormous, I mean it's way bigger than a hunter's range is. So if you are pulling, do not run into the middle of this room, because if you pull both of these packs at the same time, I don't care how good you are,
you wipe.
You're running back. Your whole raid's running back. And I'll show you why.
Way up here. They get full man. Let's go.
So these packs mimic the ones at the beginning of the instance. These are just tank and spank, but they have a DPS requirement. They drain mana, and if their mana bar reaches full, everybody dies. In fact, for the people that haven't seen this before, the beauty of everybody dying when one of these reaches full. If you pull 2 packs of these, I don't care how good your deeps is. You're not killing 4 of these before. You can't drain mana on 4 of these before they reach it. You're screwed, right? So
when the hunter is pulling, if they realize that they've pulled more than 1 pack, they can just stay and die or try and feign death it off instead of coming back to us, right?
don't count on it. Their aggro radius is something akin to 60 to 80 yards, which means that as soon as they get within that range of somebody else, they're in combat too, and it just snowballs. Not to mention the nullifiers like to mana drain in a like 120 yard radius, basically as soon as they're pulled, which will put all of the mana users in combat too. Let's just not do it in the first place. Let's just, yeah. However, just so you can watch a professional guild die real quick. When one of these reaches 100 mana,
hey, this thing's getting a lot of mana. This thing can't get full mana. I need to preach some mana burn. Mana burn the shit out of Skull. Mana burn the fuck out of X.
which happens right now, everybody dies. There's nothing you can do about this.
God fucking damn it.
Moving on. So what
Did he just say God fucking damn it?
Yep.
Yep.
So what this is supposed to look like is a single person, probably the tank, because there's no reason to have a hunter pull these, just walks along the edge here and body pulls. Drags them back. These need to die super fast. They hit meh. Not like wet noodles, but also not as hard as other things in the instance. I would either dual wield this or death wield shield or death with shield this or something. Get lots of threat on these because they need to die as fast as possible.
Pick 'em up, tanks.
The warder, on the other hand, will be the last target to die, so whoever's tanking that can throw a shield on and take their time.
Are we planning on mana burning
Like
them, or
does.
are we assuming we're going to kill them fast enough?
The ones at the beginning we will likely be able to kill fast enough. These double packs, definitely not, based on what I've seen. We will be mana burning these because even these guilds have... I've seen them at like 80% mana when the second one dies, and that's way too close for comfort.
So is it basically once they get past 25%, go into full mana burn? If they're less than that, go back to healing?
They get like 25% per tick. So I don't know if I'm gonna put the priests on mana burns ever. Maybe like 1 or 2 of us. It'll likely be the warlocks and the hunters doing it. But yeah.
For some reason, I remember Venom Sting being particularly effective against them.
Yeah.
As far as low resource usage to still get the drain off.
Is it Viper Sting for that?
Viper
mana
Sting.
burn?
Yeah, Viper. I remember to start with a V.
Viper Sting is insane in general. These nullifiers are just tank and spank from a tank perspective. Like I said, just put out some threat, let the DPS go ham. These warders have a plethora of abilities that they don't seem to be using very often. I don't know if people are just killing them too quickly or what, but they do a number of different things. Hello? They root. They do a sandblast that reduces your chance to hit. They do a couple of other shits.
Ooh, a red mount.
If our runs are anything like what I've seen other people's runs do, we just won't ever see any of their abilities. So just tank these with your back to a wall and they'll die.
Get some fucking quick mana.
So there are 2 of those packs here, and then there are more of the Mind Slayer packs, and then there's this other pack up here. This last warder pack before the split, lies in between Oro's room and Cthulhu's room. I've seen it skipped very easily on private servers. I want to see if they kill it. I don't remember. The most annoying trash in the game. Yeah, by the way, the amount of time that it takes to go from Twin Emps to Cthulhu, like, we're gonna get to Twin Emps and kill Twin Emps, and everybody's gonna look at the clock and be like, "Wow, that was fast," and then we're gonna spend that amount of time getting to Cthulhu. So, Oro's over here. So this pack can be skipped, I'm pretty sure, if we hug this right wall. I don't know if we're going to try, especially because idols are extremely valuable at the beginning of the game. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure that pack can be skipped. Moving on. And there's a pack up here. And once this pack dies, we are home free. Taking the extremely long ride toward Cthulhu's room. Eventually we come to here. I mentioned this once before, I'm going to say it 1,000 times. There are 3 spots that you are allowed to stand here, against this wall, against this wall, or against that wall. Nowhere else.
You're with Kazakh marked himself, you're good.
Nobody peeks the corner. We're going to do this.
So, if somebody does peek the corner, do they get replaced?
Yeah, instantly. This is a 30-minute run back. I am not dealing with dumb wipes more than once.
We're still like halfway down. Oh yeah.
Can we somehow arrange it so that somebody stays back here to pop a reincarnation or something with a warlock and summon?
If we wipe here, we're okay. If we wipe inside the doorway, we are not. So, yeah.
I guess because if someone did Ankh and go to res, the problem is you get in line of sight, right, when you try to res, and then you're peeking.
But if you have the warlock with a bag of shards, you just need to get the warlock and one other person to start the summon chain.
Yeah.
Not a big deal now. We're just going to go in one shot it anyway. But, you know, when we start bringing in alts.
I mean, honestly, the pull is the hard part. Cthulhu is one of the easier bosses in this instance based on what we've been seeing. We're going to do this pull a little bit differently than they do, but I will show it to you regardless. They send their tank in first. I don't like this. There's a couple of reasons I don't like this. The first is he's wasting a nature protection potion that would otherwise be used during the fight. Second is he's got 9,000 health and not wearing NR gear. So these I-beams, they don't hit him particularly hard. He absorbs the first one. Here comes the second. Absorbs the second. He pre-popped and then re-popped. The third one comes in for 1,000 damage. So he ends up absorbing like 2.5 I-beams off of that nature protection potion. I want to know how much of that was partially absorbed. It had to be, like, he had to get lucky. He's got a Thunder Fury and like a couple pieces that have some nature resist on it. That easily could have done 9,000 damage. With the nature protection potion, he was never going to die from it, but it's still like, I wouldn't have done that. We're going to be sending a hunter in first with full nature resist gear on,
so
that they take.
Tick right there says what? Basically 2241 was the damage if you look over next to his ready frames.
Oh, here you go. I-beam hits for 1,066. He resisted 830 of the last one.
Because you can see the 1175 right there.
Yeah, they hit for about 3,000. The fact that he resisted 830 with this mediocre amount of nature resist is luck. So, yeah. We're going to send a hunter in with full nature resist gear. They're going to take basically 0 damage and then feign and swap their actual gear on. The first 3 I-beams hit whoever is sent in first. The next one is completely random. I don't know if this is going to happen here, but for some reason, Cthulhu's I-beams have been really wonky lately. He targets Plasmic with one. and then just sort of stops for a while. That's not supposed to happen. And then he starts again. Don't count on that. Don't count on that. These I-beams are supposed to happen basically one right after the other. So, yeah. Nothing special for tanks here. In fact, tanks, we're probably going to have you guys like spread around the room. We only want 2 melee in here at a time. 3 is too much. So we can fit, what is it, 8 times 2? 16 melee around the boss. Any more than that is dangerous. So if you are the excess tank, if you are the one that we cannot fit around the boss, you're just sort of floating around here. The reason that you're floating around here is because you're looking for claw tentacles. Claw tentacles occasionally spawn. You saw one over there on the other side. You'll see one over here in a second. You can also get hit by the beams here. Better you than basically anybody else because you have health. But these claw tentacles that spawn need to be killed quickly, and they can be tanked. They don't hit particularly hard, but they hit quickly, and if they spawn next to a squishy, they will shred them. These eye tentacles are prio number 1, however. Claw tentacles can sort of just do whatever for a while. Eye tentacles need to die quick. This is the DPS's job. You guys don't have to worry about these. You can't tank them anyway. They're ranged. They will just mind flay somebody random. During the dark glare, doesn't matter who you are or where you're supposed to be in the room, you're DPSing. You're moving out of the I-beam, and you're putting in damage on the boss. There's no reason not to. However, people with Thunder Fury, and people that may get Thunder Fury before Cthulhu, don't wield Thunder Fury on Cthulhu. This is bad. That's 2 debuff slots. This doesn't have auto attacks. There's no reason for this. Don't use debuff slots that could be used for damage. Look at that. 2 debuff slots. All these people wielding Thunder Furies. These guys should know better too. I don't get it. I wonder if they just didn't bring extra weapons. It's probably it, honestly. There is generally a decent amount of time between phases here that you could Death Wish during the first Dark Glare and maybe have it up for the final Vuln phase for phase 2. I don't know. It's going to be something we play with. Definitely, though, if you haven't used Wreck at this point yet, save it, because we'll use it at 20%. Even the tanks. Every tank is a DPS warrior on this fight. To an extent. There's one exception to that. But after the Dark Glare ends, everybody gets back to their spots. Right? Or the opposite spots. Eye tentacles need to die. And eventually the Eye Cthulhu just dies. This is a very boring phase as a tank. You're not tanking anything. Yeah, you just sort of watch shit happen, basically. The next phase, however, your job becomes very important. So once the Eye of Cthulhu is reduced to 0 health, it disappears, and we are met with the body. You'll notice that everybody is gathering on the Gong side of the room. We will be doing the same thing. This is important because it controls the spawn of giant claw tentacles, which look like this. I want you to note his reaction time here. These will one-shot anybody else. These need to be tanked. This is okay to have a Thunder Fury on because these hit hard. In fact, put a shield on too. I think you're going to see him basically instantly shield swap here. He probably should have done it before phase. Does he? Oh, he's not actually tanking it yet, is he? No, he is. Alright, this is bad. Put a shield on. You didn't notice that his health got low, but it got low. Yeah, wear a shield. Those things hit like trucks. That is your job for phase 2. Your job for phase 2 is tank giant claw tentacles. There will be a tank here. There will be a tank over here. There will be a tank over here. I want to tank in every spot that one could pop up. They pop up under people. This is not one of them. This is a mouth that swallows people. But they will always pop up under somebody. So as long as everybody's on the same side of the room, it should always be in range of intercept. So he's sitting in defensive right now. That's okay. I don't know if I would do this. I would probably sit in Berserker, be ready to intercept. You know, generate some rage off of the thing for the intercept, and just be ready. Swap to defensive after you charge. This is the other job. These giant eye tentacles, these do not need to be tanked. In fact, they can't be tanked. However, you'll notice that he swapped to a shield for this. That is because they need to be stunned and interrupted. So, interrupt the I-beam if you can. It is a decently long cast. None of these should get through. This I-beam is the same mechanic as Cthulhu's I-beam, which means that if this goes through, while everybody is stacked on this side of the room, the raid wipes. So don't miss those. That being said, they don't have a lot of health, so they die pretty quickly. They can be stun locked, they can be kicked, all that good stuff. Now, one of the things that you're not seeing in the Cthulhu fight here is if you get swallowed as a tank and you're inside the stomach of Cthulhu, your job is to get out. You don't do anything in there. DPS people are killing tentacles. Healers are topping people off and then leaving. Your job as a tank is to keep an eye out for giant claw tentacles. You can't do that if you're inside the stomach. So if you guys get teleported in there, get the heck out. So this is relatively encouraging, what we're about to see. After they kill the next big claw tentacle, which is going to pop up, there it is. After they kill this, they're going to go into the Vuln phase. And they managed to 1-Vuln this without world buffs, which gives me a little bit of hope.
Really?
Yeah. It's very close. It's very, very close. But it makes me think that with world buffs, we'll definitely be able to do it. And
worth
without...
noting, you can put all your debuffs on him before going into the Vuln phase.
Yes.
You can get 5 stacks of Scorch, you can get 5 stacks of Sunder, you can get everything on the boss before the Vuln happens. So we should be doing that.
Yeah, you'll notice he's at 100%. The Vuln just started already, all debuffed up. It's very important. Speaking of which, those of you with Annihilators, if you're not actively tanking Claw Tentacles, just smack Annihilator into the boss. You know? Maybe we get lucky. The Vuln phase lasts 45 seconds. He has about 1 million health. Do the math. It's not undoable. It's very difficult to put in that much damage. You'll note that the tank here has swapped to a two-hander. I don't care who you are, your damage is what matters here. Nothing else is happening during this Vuln phase. You put on whatever weapon does the most damage, and you start going ham. In this case, Hamstring. I don't know why he's spamming Hamstring with the two-hander on Alliance side, but here we are.
It's to keep up Flurry.
I mean, I have a funny feeling that this is the only weapon that he has other than Thunder Fury. I think that he was smart enough for Phase 2 to swap off of Thunder Fury. Somebody else wasn't. Is this a Nightfall?
Let me come take a look. I'm not at my computer right now. Unpause
that would
the
make
video.
a lot of sense.
Unpause the video. Yep, that's Nightfall.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, hamstringing with Nightfall to keep Nightfall up. That makes sense.
Hamstring blocks the auto attack proc chance, but it can proc off hamstring itself. So as long as you're watching the swing timer, you can do that, but it's awkward.
However, whatever idiot is using Thunder Fury here needs to stop. This guild should be better than this. Expose armor will be on the boss because there's no reason not to. And yeah. This is where you save Rec 4, or you save Death Wish, you save all your things. And hopefully we one phase this, because doing another phase is not the end of the world, but it is annoying. Also, currently, you can drink and eat between phases, which means theoretically you could also swap gear between phases. It's pretty quick, and I don't know if it's intended. There are videos from back in the day showing that people did it, but they might end up patching that like they patched the extraordinarily long delay in between Neff phases at the very beginning.
If hunters have add-ons, they can swap all their gear out of NR to actual damage gear for phase 2, though.
They can do that phase 1, they can just feign.
Oh, true.
Yeah, that's why we use a hunter for the pull. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit here, move to Oro's room. I have repeated a theme here, which is the bigger it is, the harder it hits. This is the biggest boss in the instance. So, when giant sandworm spawns, you put a shield on. You put a shield. I don't know what this guy is doing. He gets smacked pretty hard, pretty quickly, and where is it? Yeah, there he goes. He gets smacked for half his health, and then puts a shield on. This was NA's second Oro, so they really didn't know how hard it hit. I don't blame him for going in dual wielding, but like better safe than sorry, right? Put a shield on, put mitigation gear on. Whatever you've got for Hoo-Hoo is probably what you want to wear for this. Maybe even a little bit more mitigation. This might be a Melkita boss, because this is the hardest hitting boss in the instance by a lot. Yeah. The
Probably
other reason,
could be a Melkita boss. Yeah.
Yeah, the other reason that this is a Melkita boss is because Oro does a sweep. That sweep is a large knockback that knocks everybody in melee range back. And if you're a Furry Prot Warrior and your Blood Rage is on cooldown, intercept is not an option. So being able to intercept will be a very nice thing. The other thing that you just saw is that there is a Sand Blast. I don't want to talk too much about the Sand Blast yet, because they're still trying to figure out how it's working. It's not working like people thought it was. It was supposed to target the second highest threat target in range, right? So it can't target the tank. It's supposed to target a ranged character with the highest threat. Nobody really knows what's going on. It's targeting people pretty randomly. There's videos of back in the day of people using warlocks that are spamming Searing Pain from range to bait the Sand Blasts, because Oro himself does not actually move. So, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see what other people do. But long story short, you don't want to point the Sandblast toward the raid. So if there's a Sandblast cast bar and you are being targeted, go somewhere else. Right, so Sandblast just hits the raid. Notice everybody is stunned. They're all spinning. Look at their health. This is a bad thing. Don't Sandblast the raid. Now, all that said, Oro is a pretty straightforward fight from a tanking perspective. You stand there, you smack the boss, you make sure he's turned away from the raid, you intercept when you can, and there are going to be adds, but if you get him to 20% before the Berserk phase happens, then adds aren't a problem. Or, I'm sorry, 20% before the Burrow phase happens.
The Burrow phase, yes.
Because he goes Berserk at 20%. So if you thought he hit hard to start with, just you wait.
Come on, burn 20%. When you get to 20%, he won't submerge. Face it.
Okay. So he goes 20%.
BJB, go back.
This is not the tank. This person should not be tanking.
It's a
But-
druid cat.
Yeah, it's a cat druid. Watch the target health here for a second. It just gets smacked. Gets smacked. Gets dead. Look how quickly that happened. This is a tank, by the way. The next person, the warrior that picks this up. This is a tank. Dead. Put mitigation gear on.
Sweep. This is bad if this sandblast hits us. It's very bad.
After 20%, it's a DPS race. Healers will only be able to keep tanks alive for so long. Bear died. There's really only so much you can do here.
Kill it.
Sandblast at the 2 tanks there.
If you wrecked on Cthulhu, you will not have shield wall for this. So if it is obvious that we are not one phasing Cthulhu, save your shield wall. We will probably do Cthulhu before Uro, because this right here, Uro kills people. Cthulhu apparently doesn't. Cthulhu's kind of a joke. Alright, so we're going to move a little bit forward here and rewind to Viscidus. So they run all the way back to Viscidus' room. This fight, from a tanking perspective, is easy as pie. It's essentially tank and spank with one mechanic to worry about, which is the poison clouds. So, if I move forward... They use a different strategy than we're going to be using. They're doing melee out. That's because they're alliance and don't have shamans. Shamans are overpowered. So they don't bring their melee in, even though they have nature resistance gear, because the amount of raid damage that they take from the poison bolt volleys is insanity. So you'll notice he has a shield on. There's really no reason not to. This boss has a very low threat ceiling. You're never gonna really have threat issues on this, and if you do, it's gonna be from the healers, not the DPS. So you just smack this boss.
Also, one thing worth noting about this boss, for shamans, do not drop Wind Fury on this boss. All the melee will have frost oils on their weapons. Wind Fury will do nothing.
Yeah. The other thing, tanks. This is super important. Heroic Strike. It's the only button you're hitting. Do not hit Bloodthirst. Do not hit Revenge. I guess you could hit Shield Block if you've got an excess of Rage. But Heroic Strike is the only button you're hitting. I will remind you of that when we get there. That's super important because your regular damage isn't doing anything. The only thing that matters here are the procs from your Frost weapon. And if you use a GCD ability, those procs don't happen. So you just want to keep Heroic Strike queued so that you're always hit capped. And yeah.
Let's use that. Let's pump that prayer healing. Make sure you're close to your priest and your.
Now he is using Revenge. I wonder if he is doing that on purpose. I have to look into Revenge. It's possible that Revenge doesn't block the proc.
It does. Anything that triggers a GCD blocks the proc.
Alright. Well, then he's bad. He's got enough of a threat lead that he doesn't need to be hitting that button. Just Heroic Strike all the time. Now we're going to skip past the fact that this is the second hardcore guild in a row to come unprepared and wipe several times. However, I do want you to note this cloud of poison. If this spawns underneath of you, you move. That's pretty simple. These globs that spawn during phase 2 do not need to be tanked, they just need to be damaged. So we will be gathering in the center and popping a bunch of AoE things. One of the things that I want you to note here is, note that they're all on top of each other, and Viscidus himself has not yet spawned. It takes Viscidus quite a few GCDs to actually pop up from these. There he is. Finally. We will be AoEing these if you are engineering, which most of our tanks should be engineering. All of our tanks should be engineering. Bring sappers. Bring whatever AoE abilities you have, because we want to kill as many of these as we possibly can. But don't do what these people do. Don't do what everybody else does, which is sapper
Early.
right there. What the heck is this?
You're hitting half of them.
Yeah, they intend to kill 5 of them, apparently. It's like, I don't get it. Don't do this. Don't do this. Wait until I call for sappers. Look how many they have left. They end up wiping 2 or 3 times on this, just like Onslaught did. They did come more prepared than Onslaught, though, so they do eventually kill it. Onslaught had to go back and forth and do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, Onslaught was ridiculous on this boss.
Yeah. So that's Viscidus, and the... Oh, just kidding. This is still lots of Viscidus run back. I'm skipping past roughly an hour of content here because... No, it's not that much. Okay, and then the last boss. This is a boss that we will not be skipping. We're actually going to head down here as soon as we kill Scarum, because it'll be relatively easy and free loot. So we'll be doing this before Sartura. This is the Bug Trio. So we have to kill this pack down here. This is the same as the beginning packs with the Guardians, the Knockback, and the Mind people that do their thing. It's only 1 trash pack, though. 2 trash packs. And then we are into Bug Room. 3 trash packs. What the heck? I don't remember this many trash packs in the Bug Trio room. Oh well. Okay, so we kill a bunch of trash packs. A very important note. I mentioned the fact that these knock back. Don't get knocked back into the Bug Trio room. I think you can reset them, but like, let's not take a gamble on it. Okay, so this is the Bug Trio. Kree is the big one. And like everything else in AQ, the bigger it is, the harder it hits, which means we kill Vem last, because he's a wimp. We will be killing Yauj, and then Kree, and then Vem. They each have their own little mechanics, none of which really matter too much. The big thing is what happens when they die. So, I will talk about Yauj's mechanic, because it's the only one that you guys actually care about. Yauj, Skull, the one that we're going to kill first, we're not going to do it like this. This is bad. Bringing Yauj into the middle of the raid. So there are 2 ways to kill Yauj. I don't know why they're doing this as Alliance. Alliance have Fear Ward, which completely negates Yauj. The fact that they're bringing it in the middle of the raid means that they're intending for Yauj to fear everybody. Yauj has a fear that drops the threat of everybody that it hits. So, let's see if we see this. Oh, she also has a heal. People interrupt that, no big deal. So there's the fear. Fear happens, threat gets wiped, and then people pick it back up. It is tauntable, worth noting. Traditionally, Yauj is tanked against a wall, so that healers don't get feared and other people don't get feared, yada yada yada. Because it's a tauntable boss, like, we just have a tank on standby ready to taunt it after the fear happens. There's really no reason to... See, now they've got it into a corner. This is better. This is where I would like Yauj tanked at the start. You'll also notice that they're slowly bringing Kree back. Oh, wait, that's Vem. Are they killing Kree last? Okay. So they're going to do it slightly differently than we are. At least the
What was the time difference between when they pulled and when they got him into that corner?
So they pull at 2:30, and Yauj hits the corner at like 25 seconds.
It feels long. Is there not a closer corner, or do they need distance for some reason?
Any wall works. The reason that they like this little cubby here is because when Yauj dies, Yauj's death mechanic is... Wait for it. Oh yeah, also by the way, these things, they don't like it when you kill their friends. You'll see the little health bars of Yauj's brood. Yauj spawns a bunch of ads. So if all of those ads spawn in a tight location, you guarantee that they are all stacked for AoE. Now they've got Kree over here. I can't tell. Are they actually trying to kill Kree second, or is he just picking him up? He's just picking him up. Okay. We will kill Kree second, because Kree hits like a truck, like I said. And there's a very important thing to note here. Vem, when Vem dies, he enrages all of the others. So you never kill Vem first. That's a bad idea. Vem is either last or second to last. When Vem is the last one alive, he will also enrage himself. But Vem hits like a relatively wet noodle, so Vem enraging is not as big of a deal as Kree enraging. However, no matter what, no matter which bug you kill last, it will be enraged. So, after the second bug dies, you put a shield on. Vem has this poison bolt volley, which for us, because we're Horde, we don't care. The Alliance are taking a shit ton of damage from it. So again, we take him in a corner. Eventually he dies. Oh yeah, Vem has a charge. Another one of the reasons you take him in a corner. That's actually the first time I've ever seen Vem charge. Normally people just nuke him. Notice how the tank here got down to like 2400 health. Like I said, relative wet noodle. Still hits. However, Kree, especially once Vem is dead, just watch the target here for a second.
Hits real hard.
I hadn't watched the bug trio of this run yet. That makes me laugh. This is why we're not killing Kree last the first few times. Because
So he does not have a shield on?
He does not have a shield on and gets splatted from 100%.
Yeah. Don't do this. He's got a life-giving gem running too. 9,000,
So it did take 2 hits.
367, 3 hits, all instantaneously.
Ah.
He's still alive after that, though. So he gets a hit again. Or maybe they just all batched and his health didn't update yet. That's probably the case.
Yeah, I think it all batched.
It looked like a batch.
Yeah.
But regardless, put a shield on.
Oh man, I got deleted.
Pop a stone shield. Do both.
And there's 3 people dead.
Yep. So this is where tanks just start biting it. Luckily, doesn't have that much health. So you can just burn him. But yeah, tanks don't like this. Kree drops a poison field upon death. This will be more relevant for us than it is for them, because we'll be killing Kree first, or I'm sorry, second. So this poison field will linger as we are killing them. This poison field is no joke, by the way. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Killed 8 people before they did the thing. So yeah, that is the last boss of AQ40. For us, it's the second boss. For them, it's the last. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Backs
Are we
against
killing
walls.
Kree, then Yauj, then Vem in that order?
We'll be doing Yauj, then Kree, then Vem.
Okay.
Just because he walked back into the poison. I didn't watch that again. Why? 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 Okay. Yeah. So if it's big, put a shield on. You know.
And they're all laughing at him for dying again.
Yeah, I would too. Okay, let me show you something real quick.
It did look like he was not in the graphic, but the graphics it feels like are not nearly as big as the effects in Classic.
Okay, so where did Bale post this? It's on Fight Club too, but I think I can find it easier here. Aha. Okay.
That's the second one.
So this is data that's been parsed from logs for all of the AQ40 bosses. This is I'm gonna try and explain some of this so that your brains don't explode. But the big thing that you need to keep in mind here is that some of these things have large ranges of cast intervals. So Summon Images is a static thing. True Fulfillment, you'll notice that there's a large window that it can be cast in, but in that window there are specific windows as well. What I want you guys to be aware of, and again, if you want to look at this, it is in the raid discussion channel. You should scroll up a bunch past Bacon Master's meme, and Bale posted it. It's also in the AQ Theory Crafting channel in Fight Club. But here's what I want you to look at, is these first graphs. This is the unbuffed, unmitigated melee damage from each of the bosses. So, we can find out things like Scarum hits moderately, right? There's no demo shout here, there's no attack power reductions going on. It's just Scarum hitting. Kree hits like a truck. Yauj, meh. Vem, okay. Sartura, again, like I said, Sartura is a relative wet noodle compared to some of the bosses in here. Fankris doesn't hit that hard. Viscidus doesn't hit that hard. Again, I'd put a shield on for this just because why not? Huhuran, this is why you're putting mitigation gear on for Huhuran. Vecnalash, this is why you're putting mitigation gear on for Vecnalash. This is ridiculous. This is so much damage. Veclor doesn't actually do melee damage. This is mislabeled. This is the shadow damage
Shadow
that
Bolt.
Veclor does, yeah. Oro. Like I said,
Wow.
the bigger it is, the harder it hits. Put your mitigation gear on for Oro. We will definitely be putting Melkita in front of this one, but the chances of other tanks taking hits from Oro are very high. So, be careful. And then there's Cthulhu, who does literally 0 melee damage. But note the giant claw tentacle damage. It is second only to Vecnalash and Oro. This thing hits like a truck. Alright, any questions about any of that?
I think I missed a few things in there. Can you start over?
Yeah, there's a recording. It's on YouTube. Go to our guild website. And...
Oh, cheater.
I don't like repeating myself. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, if you had to step away for bio or food or whatever and you missed parts, scroll through the recording. And if you have any questions that pop up between now and the gates opening, or even while we're inside, please don't hesitate to ask. Obviously, this is new content for the vast majority of the guild. Tanks have the most important job by a landslide. So I want to make sure that you guys are well informed and doing things correctly.
How's it going, everyone?
Hey, bud, how's it going?
I know this is a touch off topic, but I was watching a Scarm video the other day, and he was talking about having a DPS warrior and improved demo shout. Are we gonna do that?
It is like, here, let me open up a warrior calculator. I had mentioned this once before, but I want to make sure that's even possible. I have a funny feeling that...
I think you have to, instead of taking the Unbridled Wrath, the second one down, you have to take the improved demo instead.
What is the base attack power reduction of Demo Shout?
It's pretty good.
Enough that 40% extra is good, and something to keep in mind with attack power math. It's not a linear reduction.
No.
The more attack power you reduce, the more impactful each point becomes. Our problem is we haven't had a DPS warrior volunteer or prove themselves able to actually keep a shout up.
So here's what I would say about all this. I think it's...
Do we get a volunteer that is just going to plan on dancing, that is just there for thunderclaps and demo shouts, and then beyond that do what damage you can do?
I wonder.
It's absolutely...
You want the heroic strike over the parry, right?
Not as deep prot, which is what I'm testing.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't think you can reach shield slam and go impale as well. And have...
No.
Impale is
Yeah,
18 plus your 31.
I think the best thing to do is have one of our DPS warriors move out of improved battle shout and into improved demo shout, and just make sure that they're in a group with somebody that's going to keep this up.
Agreed.
I don't share your faith in any of their ability to keep up debuffs on a target. Like, I've hampered on it for 9 months now, and nobody has given me the least bit of inspiration that it's possible for them.
All right, I'm main swapping. No, let me talk to a couple of them. I have a funny feeling that I know a couple that would actually do it.
So part of the issue is, I think the DPS are getting a mixed message as far as sometimes there's actually comments made to not have Thunderclap up. And I think if somebody just got told in AQ, this is just needs to happen. Like there's no reason to not have Thunderclap on any of those things hitting tanks.
I mean, there's no reason to not have Thunderclap ever. Like Thunderclap, we have a debuff slot for Thunderclap every single time. So
one problem there is that Thunder Fury will override it and last significantly less time, and then occasionally fall off. So you need somebody who's diligent.
Well, at that point, can we get a weak aura set up that will pop the Thunderclap being missing up only when Thunder Fury debuff is not on the target?
It's already been spread through the Warrior channel like 5 times.
Yeah, I made a halfway decent one.
Yeah, there's no nice way to put it. Our DPS warriors are wildly negligent about debuffs. They don't give a shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, realistically, the best way to handle this is to get 2 more Thunder Furies before AQ, right? But yeah.
One thing you could do just at the beginning, because people get swapped to different splits and they've kind of been used to that, just at the beginning of the raid, whisper whoever you want to do it, say, you're the guy, you're thunderclapping today.
We've tried that with several people and several volunteers, and nobody has proven themselves able to actually do it. Which is
I think what I'm gonna do, because realistically I only want one person swapping to this. I'm gonna talk to somebody that I think I have relative faith in. I'm gonna talk to them and basically say, hey, listen, if you can make 100% of AQ days and you keep this up on bosses 100% of the time, your spot's guaranteed. Because you're right, there aren't many that will actually do it.
On the subject of debuffs, I was reading into the Twin Imps fight. Have you guys thought about this? Might be a meme suggestion, but specifically on the melee Emperor, he's immune to Curse of Recklessness and also Fairy Fire. So there's quite a bit of extra armor on him. Is something like Bash Gooder or Ribbon Spike
Yes.
Viable on him?
Not only is it viable, it's highly recommended.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was reading a little bit about that earlier.
Yeah, we
That
talked
got
about
brought
a
up
little bit a while
earlier.
back. Yeah, they're Bashgutter and Ravenspike are god tier on Twin Imps.
Okay, I kind of thought so.
Especially because, like, with the amount of, like, Fairy Fire and Curse of Wreck are the vast majority of the armor reduction on a boss. Like, we're gonna put Expose on him probably, but even then, like 3 stacks of Bashgutter or Ravenspike is probably somewhere close to a 10 to 15% melee DPS upgrade. So. But yeah, I'll talk to somebody about this spec. I've got somebody in mind.
So is that right? We do have an exposed armor rogue?
We are going to, yeah. In
Cool.
the past, we've had Sandwiches doing it, just because he's an officer and was in on the discussions for it, and I wanted to test it out in a few different places, but only a few different places. So, but he's daggers, so obviously it's not optimal. So we're gonna have Antipathy handling it.
Cool.
We'll probably only use it on some fights, especially until our tanks get their improved Revenge and Heroic Strike and Battle Shout, because without those things, not being able to sunder is a bit of a crutch. But sooner or later, we're going to swap to just Expose. 1 GCD of Sunder, and then however long it takes to Expose.
Also getting the next rank of Strength of Earth and Grace of Air for the tanks is going to be good.
Very.
Another 0.5% crit. And I think it's like 30 more attack power. Is it 10 or 15 increase? I should look that up.
This is more on the healer side of things, but he was also talking about the shaman buff to the tanks, and also one from the priests.
Yeah, 16
For
more
the armor
strength.
crit, or what?
Yeah, it's I can't remember it. I don't have them in front of me, but essentially it's the improved healing way or something. I can't remember on the shaman.
Inspiration, Ancestral Fortitude.
Yeah, just making sure those are up on the tanks all the time.
That's unfortunately not something you can guarantee.
Yeah,
but procs on heal crits.
Yeah. The only way to really fish for that is to do things like spamming rank 1 flash heal, but you have to weigh the benefit of increasing the uptime on that buff versus actually healing.
There's also rank 1 healing wave, which some shamans should be doing periodically, but not like focusing entirely on it.
Yeah. For anybody that wants to watch the remainder of this video, I'm going to shut the stream down, but they go into AQ20, and he also does a tanking perspective at AQ20. To say that AQ20 is significantly easier would be a bit of a lie. There have been some people that have had some big trouble in AQ20 somehow.
Especially on the Wasp boss.
Yeah, but the general gist of the general gist of AQ20 is it's much more relaxed.